Hi, John.
Hello, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Gotta turn up my headset here.
Hi, everyone.
Carol. Hi, John.
Hey, Carol.
Erin, we just got an email from Elliot that he's
I
not
saw.
feeling well and probably won't make it.
Yes, thank you. We will have a quorum, though.
Okay, good. That was my
No
next question.
worries.
My next question.
There's no Janet tonight either.
Right.
I think it's just Janet and Elliot who are missing.
Hello.
Michael, we can hear you, but not see you.
Okay.
Michael.
Hold on. There we go.
There you are.
How was everyone today?
Great.
Fine,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Doing well, thanks.
Did everyone attend the training session on Saturday?
I certainly did.
Not
Be sure to
Morgan.
send your receipts if you're looking for reimbursement for attending also.
Oh, right.
Maria already has mine, and she said that she wouldn't be able to send it in till she had confirmation that I actually was there.
We'll figure that out.
There were over 800 attendees.
I saw that. That
Isn't that
was
amazing?
absolutely surprising to me.
It's a big turnout, which is
Hi,
great.
Bob,
Hold on one second.
Hi, Bob.
you're muted, just in case you want to unmute. So, and we're
Yes.
still expecting Bob Reinhardt?
Yes.
So wait, give it another minute. According to my tide chart, sunrise and sunset were at 7:01 today. So I don't know why
Oh.
equinox is next week. As far as I'm concerned, it's today. Let's give Bob Reinhardt maybe a minute or so more to see if he's joining us.
Did you guys do the training this last weekend?
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Maybe
Yeah,
we could maybe talk about it at the end of the meeting. Is that okay? Since we're just about to get started.
I'm not going to object, believe me. It's not. I was at the Big Ten men's basketball tournament last week. 13 games in 5 days. Lots of trash talk, overeating, over drinking. Good way to start the spring. It's 14 years I've been doing this with colleagues from work.
Wow.
It's fun.
Sounds
They're all
exhausting.
retired. I'm not, but they are. So anyway.
It's like March
I'll stop
Madness to
whining.
me.
That's right.
Should we get
I
started?
have Bob. I'll transfer him over. He joined as an attendee. So
Oh,
he's
super. Okay.
He's going to pop right over. And I'll start moving some of our first presenters over, Madam Chair, while you get started. Oh, and I'll get the legal notice for us here.
I see Bob Reinhardt's name, and there he is. Welcome, Bob. All right, I think we should call the meeting to order then, Aaron.
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, and I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of March 16th, 2023 to order. We have 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening, so I'll take a few minutes to review the process for public hearings. During the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to join as a panelist to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The applicant or staff will share all application materials on the screen as needed. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any, and there will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from attendees. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. Next, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and then those who oppose the application may come forward. As this public hearing must be recorded, it's necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. Once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Land Use Department at 203-245-5631 after 9 a.m. All actions taken tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are members John Duza, John Morgan, Bob O'Connor, Bob Reinhardt, and myself, Carol Snow. I would also like to seat Michael Bogda to fill a vacancy. He's our alternate. Is that okay with you, Michael?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Staff present this evening is Aaron Mannix, our town planner. This meeting is live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for viewing. Additionally, I would like to ask that we treat each other respectfully throughout the meeting. The town planner will now read the legal notice. Aaron.
Thank you. And just a note that our first public hearing for 885 Boston Post Road is a continuance from our February 16th meeting, so it's not included in this particular legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. via Zoom online webinar. Attendees may join the webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information. The ID is 915-8196-6735. The passcode is 452138. And the call-in number is 646-558-8656. The following application will be heard. Application number 23-07. Applicant is David Klein. It's a petition for regulation amendment to Madison zoning regulations, Special Exception Section 4.1.35. Copies of this application are available for inspection in the Land Use Office. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website at www.madisonct.org. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Department via email landuse@madisonct.org or dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated at Madison, Connecticut, this 21st day of February, 2023, Carol Snow, Chair. This was published once in the Source on March 2nd, 2023, and once on March 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the first agenda item, which is, as Aaron said, a continuation of the public hearing for 23-04, 885 Boston Post Road. It's a continuation from February 16th, 2023. So could I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
To open.
To open, reopen, continue. Bob Reinhardt, that was a motion. Thank you. And a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
Michael, I got you first, I think. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aaron, do we have representatives?
Yes, Attorney Michael Sulzbach is here representing the applicant, as well as architect Wayne Garrick, and Michael Ott, civil engineer, is here as well. And Michael or Wayne, oh, excuse me, and Gwen Hirschap is the landscape architect on on record. Is there anyone else that you were expecting to join to represent the applicant, Wayne?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Thank you. So welcome, everyone. Who would like to go first?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Wayne Garrick. I'm an architect. My office is on Whitney Avenue in New Haven. And we began this process of evaluating and designing a new project for 885 Boston Post Road, the former Elizabeth's restaurant. Perhaps back in the late summer when we first began discussions with Aaron about the zoning and the approach to this project. Looking at the existing building, first of all, is that the building is, perhaps most of you know, it's in very, very poor condition. We haven't done a complete structural analysis of it, but I can attest to the fact that having taken some measurements around the building, I'm glad I'm here this evening to be able to make this presentation to you. It's not in very good condition structurally. There are other aspects to the building, which between low ceilings, poor insulation, no fire protection, a variety of items that leads one to desire, as well as the fact that the building is existing and non-conforming. As most of you know, Attorney Sulzbach and I appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals back in December 13th to be exact. And while we have reduced, if not eliminated, most of the non-conformities, we did receive several variances, and those are on record. And those variances included a parking requirement variance and a side yard variance on the west side. Yeah, Attorney Sulzbach can embellish. I may have forgotten another variance or two there, but we basically cured many of the issues of the existing building and site. For example, not to go off on a tangent right away, but I know there's been some concern expressed by one of the neighbors about the parking, and that you received a letter that the parking was reduced, but it happens to be quite the opposite. The existing parking, there are 9 existing parking spaces. We have provided 12, and we received a variance from the required 19. Another aspect to our design is we made the front yard setback conforming. 5 feet is required. We have 6 feet. The eastern side yard is conforming. The rear yard is conforming. The height is conforming. The western side yard was existing non-conforming, but we were able to, we narrowed the building slightly, and we were able to increase that side yard by 1 foot. And in doing so, the 2 feet that we have now between the property line and the building, rather than being bituminous, has become a pervious area. We're infilling, Gwen can speak to this better than I, but we're infilling that area with stone in order to provide some drainage. The concept behind the building is that it's obviously in the style of Greek Revival. And to that, it consists of a basement area, which we hope to, which has been designed actually with above average ceiling height, so that it can be connected to the first floor of a potential restaurant. And the basement would be utilized for kitchen, possibly a small office and storage space for the restaurant up above, so that the main floor can be dedicated to the restaurant use, as well as for the entrance to the residential units up above. There are 2 apartments designed up above. The square footage, the gross square footage of the basement is approximately 1,768 square feet. The first floor area is slightly larger than the basement. That is 2,005 square feet. And the residential floor, the second floor, is 1,948 square feet. There's been some publication that actually doesn't quite equal 5,900 square feet of which has been published, but once one includes the covered rear porch, which is required by the building code to cover, it brings it to the first floor to a larger area by another 120 square feet. So if one adds that to the overall, it becomes approximately 5,900 square feet overall for the 3 stories of the building, or the 2 stories plus the basement. The building, because it's a place of assembly, we have we're required by the building code to provide a fire suppression system. So there's a great benefit to that, not only for this building, but to neighbors as well. So it does provide a level of safety for adjacent neighbors. The building would be basically wood frame construction. It would conform to the present energy code. It satisfies ADA requirements. We have an elevator from ground level to the first floor of the building where the parking is in the back. That was deliberate to put it there, since people would park there. That's where the handicap parking space is. And therefore they would access the elevator. The elevator also, as a matter of convenience, not required by building code, does service the second floor apartments as well, and the basement. Basement can also be accessed via an exterior hatchway for deliveries and things of that nature. So as I mentioned, we've reduced the coverage of this project. The existing coverage of the project, this was all part of the Zoning Board of Appeals presentation, is existing approximately 36%. We've reduced it to 26%. Actually, the building itself, the habitable portion, conforms to the 25% requirement. The extra 1% is that covered entryway that I mentioned in the back. We introduced landscaping. Gwen Hershaft has done a marvelous job designing some very natural landscaping. It was extremely well received by the ACCA, as was this entire project. They voted, as you may know, unanimously to approve this project, both from a design standpoint and the material board that we submitted to them. I hope that each of you have received at least a photograph of the material board.
Excuse me, Wayne, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you able to screen share the plans, or would you
I'm
like?
not. If you
Would you
can,
like me to bring those up? Because I think
Sure.
that would be beneficial to the commission and those attending.
That would
So-
be greatly appreciated. Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I'll just start with your revised set, your revised set. Is that sufficient?
Sure.
Okay,
Another aspect to the project has been Michael Ott has designed a new septic system to replace the existing sort of, I believe, mostly cesspool type system that exists now. So this will have a conforming sanitary and system that's required by the health department and the state code. Looking at the plan, you can see that the entryway on the post road down at the bottom, the south, leads to a few stairs. The stairs are stone. The entryway is stone. The porch would be a composite to the new restaurant, which is basically the restaurant seating area and the restroom area. To the right there on the east side, you can see we've replaced the bituminous driveway with pervious pavers. Another part of our effort to control stormwater management. Though there aren't any specific requirements, we felt in terms of being a responsible designer and owner that we would address some of the stormwater management questions that typically come up these days. And so this way, any of the water that's running down that particular driveway can permeate into our stormwater management system prior to going onto the Boston Post Road. In the back, that's where our parking is. We introduced, as I mentioned, 12 spaces. There's some planting back there as well, which Gwen has introduced. And then to the far rear of the property, there's also landscaping introduced there. To the right, actually, Mike today found a photograph, an aerial photograph of the dumpster. The dumpster prior to with Elizabeth used to be on the left-hand side of the parking lot, just sitting on the bituminous there. But our new trash enclosure and trash container is actually on a nice concrete slab, which will be sealed so that things do not permeate into the earth. We have a beautiful ornamental fence around it. The ACCA, we introduced 5x5 steel columns for the fence posts, which we've done. If we were to move to the south elevation, Aaron, that would be helpful. Let's see. A little further down. You have the south elevation? Yeah, there we go. Yes, so looking at the south elevation, oh, this is the original drawing, but as you can see over the entryway, we had an oval window there, and in discussions with the ACCA, they felt that that was over embellishment, for lack of a better term. So they requested that we change it to a double hung to match the others, which we've done. Another request they made was that the very tall windows in the restaurant area, I think we had 8/8 for those windows. They wanted them to be 6/6, which we've changed as well. The little return on the gable, that goes across, we had a little steeper, but it's now been reduced in terms of its pitch. And then I think the last item from an architectural perspective, I had proposed burgundy as a color for the shutters as a reference to Elizabeth's there for the old building, but the ACCA thought that I was a little dated in my selection, so which is possible. I'm over that age, so my apologies in advance, but that's okay. I'm still flexible. That's the good thing. And so we've changed actually the color of the shutters to sort of a seacoast gray, which was a suggestion by one of the members of the committee there.
I have two quick questions.
Sure.
Is the main entrance from the front or the rear, or are they equally accessible?
They're equally accessible. There is obviously an entrance on the front along the post road there,
Right.
but there is a rear entry. You can see right there. Aaron has the arrow there now, and then to the left of that rear entry is the elevator, the entry to the elevator.
Okay. All right. The other dumb question is the railing on the roof. Is that decorative?
No. If you look at the plan, we actually have the staircase. It's for residents only. It's not for any
I see.
patrons of the restaurant.
Okay.
But the staircase does go to a roof hatch to the roof. If
Okay.
the residents so desire, they can put a couple chairs up there. We are using the rear portion of that roof deck to conceal the HVAC condensing units. There won't
Okay.
be any condensing units on the ground. They'll be on that roof deck. And so the roof hatch is also there for service purposes as well.
I see. Okay.
Actually, speaking of the roof, probably in the north side of the building there, somewhere toward the back, there was discussion of this during the ZBA meeting because I believe one of the members, very nice fellow, was an HVAC contractor. And we agreed during that particular meeting that the exhaust flue for the kitchen equipment down in the basement would actually be in a chase, which would penetrate the first and second floors and the attic and come out the roof, as opposed to any side mount exhaust fans or any exterior mounted flues on the building. So the building, as you see it here, is the building it will be without any fans or flues or exhaust equipment on the facade or
Nice
running up
touch.
the side of a building. So
Nice touch.
yeah, so thank you. So we preserve that, and I promised I would work with our MEP fire protection consultants to make that happen. The materials are fairly straightforward. The siding is Borel clapboard siding. Some of you may be familiar with it. It replicates clapboards quite well, but it is a fire resistant siding. Speaking of which, along the side, the west side elevation, because we are less than 5 feet from the property line, it's required to be a 1 hour rated wall. Okay, so we're not really allowed to have any penetrations or openings in that wall. But as you can see, so that the neighbor didn't look at just a blank wall there, which is essentially what's required by the building code, we introduced windows along that wall. But what we typically do is you can't see the windows from the inside. They don't provide any light to the interior, but they're backed up by a fire resistant panel. So that from the outside, you see 6 windows. And we also, by the way, introduce LED lighting at the sills. So at night, they can be lit up to look like you're seeing light from the interior. But the fact of the matter is they're not seen from the interior. They have no function for the interior. It's purely for the aesthetics of the community and for the neighbor to the west. The foundation, as we indicated on our material board, is going to be granite stone. The windows are simulated divided light windows. They're not what are called fine lights. It's not just a divided light between the glass, but there are mutton bars on the interior as well as the exterior, plus the spacer bars. There are wood shutters on the building. The roof is fiberglass shingles, though we do have some roof areas that are also standing seam metal roof. The building is essentially white with a gray roof, gray shutters, as I mentioned, and the standing seam roof is also sort of a turn or silver colored metal standing seam along with the granite. I'm not sure what else I can answer about the building per se, other than with the new energy code, it will be energy efficient. We're now required to have R60 in the roof rafters. But just so you know, that means 9 1/4 inches of closed cell foam these days.
Wow.
That's in the new state of Connecticut 2022 building code.
I assume it's also 2x6 construction then?
Pardon?
I assume it's 2x6 construction?
Yes.
Excuse me, Wayne, could you speak to the lighting on the building?
Yes, there's the lighting. There are 3 downlights. Mike Vina is our lighting designer, electrical engineer. But there are 3 downlights you'll see in our package, the lighting plans that strictly just downlight the eastern side of the building for people walking. We do have landscape lighting along the front, in the front garden. Gwen selected those fixtures, so we have, as you can see, 4 landscape lights there. We have a couple other landscape lights at the tree at the rear entry there. And we have 1 wall pack fixture in the center of the building, which is directed out toward the parking lot, but its cutoff is long before any property lines, or certainly the rear property line, which is something like 75 feet away, by the way. So the lighting is subtle but adequate. We have LED lights in the ceiling of both the rear entry porch and the front porch. All the lighting, actually, this was another request by the ACCA, is going to be 3,000 K or less. We've stipulated that in our documents, as well as our meeting with the ACCA, so that there won't be any harsh cold lighting. It'll be
Okay.
be
So
warm.
they want to save it warm.
3,000 K, 2,700 K. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's a rating for LED lighting fixtures, and 2,700 K is very similar to maybe a 60-watt flood lamp you have in a recessed light at your home. 3,000 K is just slightly above that in terms of color. But I mean, if someone had presented to you a project with a light of 4,000 or 5,000 K, which LED lights are available, and that would be a very cold, sort of bluish light versus a warmer light like we've specified in this project. So I think I hopefully answered everything. There was some comment in a letter about the construction procedures. I mean, naturally, we would follow all the rules and regulations the general contractor would, in terms of the municipality, in terms of protecting adjacent properties and dust control. And I mean, it's all part of our specification once we get into the construction document phase. And I know there's some concern about the dumpster area as well, but as I've said, the trash container area that we've proposed is modest. It naturally has to be maintained according to the health department standards. And I'm sure any concerns that anybody may have, the owner can address one point or another. Last but not least, not within my purview or anybody, even Attorney Sulzbach at the moment, but it'll probably be the person involved with it. I suggest, as I suggested at the ZBA meeting, and we also, Gwen and I spoke about a little bit off the record with the ACCA, that, because these various parking lots adjoin each other, it would be good if if the neighbors got together and developed some sort of joint parking agreement between them. But since Elizabeth's is no longer there, and I've been at the site a few times, when I put up the sign, for example, and parked in the back, I noticed that the parking lot was utilized by the neighbors to the east and the west for their visitors. And so I think something, along the lines of joint parking agreement, not probably part of your purview, but can be developed in the future, hopefully, if agreeable to all of the neighbors. I think it would be a positive step for the overall feeling of these 3 particular properties. So I think I've spoken long enough, and turn this over to you for some questions, or certainly to Gwen or to Michael.
I had a silly question about the parking space. There's a space next to slot 9. It's not numbered. I didn't understand what was going on there.
It must be space 8. My apologies.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I thought maybe it was just being used for something else.
No. In fact, we left quite a bit of space. As you can see, we didn't, who knows what will happen, I mean, in reality, but we did leave space behind the hatchway there, as you can see, for deliveries and things of that nature.
Right, right.
We also anticipate that the trash container will be emptied by, a truck will pull in, they'll open the gates, The container will be rolled out, emptied, and then put back in, and the gates closed. So I guess that would be the sequencing of the trash container and how it's serviced.
I have a question for you, Wayne.
Yes.
In the application, it didn't refer to any of the historic resources, but in fact, the structure that you're tearing down is the 1834 John P. Coe House. I was wondering, are you going to salvage any of the historic materials and reuse them? It looked almost like the fan light was
Yes.
original.
Two things that we can. I've looked, believe it or not, underneath the aluminum siding. Were there a couple of places that I examined, I didn't see very much, but you're absolutely correct. We hopefully can reuse that fan light that's up in the existing attic. If not, we're hoping to duplicate it. And the second thing is, we're not sure of the thickness, but there are some phenomenal granite stones to the foundation. But you'll see in Gwen's plan, we coordinated that we're going to reuse those stones as the curbing around the planting.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, so yeah, we've tried to, if we find anything else like a door or something of that nature, we'll make every effort to incorporate those items. I'm not sure how important this is, but as a student architect, very briefly, I worked for HABS, the Historic American Building Survey, for 3 summers, part of the Department of Interior, and I worked at several different sites around the country. I measured and drew historic buildings for the Library of Congress, and you can Google me and you'll see the drawings. The other thing is, though, I have done some strict restorations as well. I did the Tapping Reed Law School in Litchfield. I worked on sort of not strict, but a relatively accurate restoration of the Pinto House in New Haven, which actually recently a developer moved. But I have been involved with quite a few historic properties through the years, particularly since I did so much work. I've done so much work in Litchfield. So we've been sensitive to the window and to the foundation and any other items we may be able to salvage throughout the demolition process.
Thank you.
Wayne, John Morgan, is there any lighting in the back of the lot near the dumpster or near those back parking areas?
No, out of consideration for the neighbors, we did not introduce any light poles or anything like that toward the back of the lot. The other lots don't have any lighting either. So we didn't want to make this into sort of a real, like a drugstore commercial parking lot. You know, we wanted to maintain the scale and proportion of what's there without sacrificing safety. We think the wall pack light should be adequate to provide ambient lighting for pedestrians in that area.
Thank you.
Wayne, you mentioned the pervious pavers in the driveway. Can you speak, or perhaps Gwen will be speaking to the stormwater. Can you speak to any other stormwater improvements that you're providing on site?
I think I think Michael Ott might be able to answer that question.
Okay,
I don't see, is he here?
he is here. Let me see if he come over.
Basically, those pavers, just so you know, they are installed in, I know I'm going to use the wrong term, but a stone dust-like material, so that the water may percolate between the pavers into the subsurface below. But I'll let Michael discuss that a little further.
Mike, are you there? Are you able to talk? I know
is muted.
he is
Yeah.
muted. Well, we can,
Can the commission hear me now? I'm sorry.
yes.
We can.
Are
Okay,
you
I-
able to explain the stormwater, Mike?
I am. I apologize. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summer Hill Civil Engineers PC. And our office is at 60 Wall Street here in town in Madison. So in addition to the pavers and the stone strip that Wayne and I think Gwen also may have talked about, we also are collecting all the roof water and the rear parking lot pavement and directing it to subsurface stormwater infiltration system, precast concrete galleries. And those galleries have been sized to temporarily store and infiltrate the water quality volume that's required by the Connecticut DEP Stormwater Quality Manual. And any overflow of that system is tied back to the existing storm drainage system, which connects out to the state system within the highway of Route 1. So I think we've made quite an improvement there because there is no treatment for water quality today. There is no infiltration of stormwater runoff. It simply runs over the pavement, enters two actually catch basin inlets, and then is piped directly out to the state highway drainage system.
Thank you, Mike.
I think it might be a good idea to have Gwen discuss a little bit of the landscaping.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Gwen. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Gwen.
I can share my screen here if that would be helpful of the plan.
Sure, thank you.
Let's see here. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Or I'm going to try to. Our focus here was to stick with the mostly native plant palette and focusing on 4-season interest. So along the front porch here, we have a mix of some low evergreen shrubs. One is called, zooming in here, inkberry holly, which is native. And then we also have a mix of native switchgrass that'll only reach about 4 feet tall. So it will come just under where the floor of the porch is, maybe like a bit above. So you'll still be able to see through while you're sitting on the porch to the streetscape, but it'll be kind of flowy and textural and soft. And in the foreground of that, we have a mix of native perennials that will have a season of interest for most of the summer season into early fall. At the back of the building, we decided to use American Holly Jersey Princess, again, a native evergreen for year-round interest. And underneath that, we're going to use Liriope spicata as a ground cover, which is also evergreen, which is why we chose that plant. It's hard to find native evergreen ground covers. So this one is not native, but it fits the box for 4-season interest. And along the back of the lot, we again have a mix of the evergreen inkberry holly and the native panicum grass. So it's like this plant palette is very fitting with the coastal setting, so to speak, even though we're not literally on the coast here, but it is a shoreline town. And it's textural, it's native for the most part, and it should have 4-season interest, like I've been saying. Underneath the existing maple out in the back beyond the trash enclosure, we're going to fill that area in with more liriope. It's that there's some lawn growing there now, but it's mostly dirt, it seems like. So just making that a bit more appealing to the eye. I don't know if you have any questions, or I can go into more plant details.
When those, most of those plants seem quite drought tolerant too. Is that right?
Yes, yes. The sedums, the allium, everything needs some water for establishment, but these will certainly hold up well against a parking lot and other hardscape.
Thanks.
And you had a detail on your sheet for the lighting as well as the dumpster enclosure. Would you mind
Yes,
bringing that back up so that the commission and attendees could see that?
so here we just have it's just a simple reference image of the type of style of fencing we're going for the trash enclosure. We'll match the 6 foot tall requirement, and the posts where the trash enclosure doors will be the 5x5 galvanized steel, like Wayne has mentioned. So it's robust. And then here we have a very simple path light. The idea is that it's angled at the top and it shines light down to the ground and then out, so it's never in your face. It's very minimal. This would only come to think about like 18, maybe 24 inches high. I think you could adjust the height if you wanted to. But again, it's just simple. It won't draw attention to itself within the plantings.
Have you entertained any more of a solid enclosure as far as the refuse location, at least for the portion that's facing the residential abutters, for more of a screening opportunity as opposed to the picket?
We haven't. I suppose we could, but right behind the enclosure is a 54-inch diameter tree. So, but I guess we could. I mean, we could introduce the balusters at 2 inches on center versus 4 inches on center, which would provide slightly more closure.
Erin, would it be possible to pull up a view that would show where the abutters are?
Sure, let me.
How close they
I
are,
will.
since that's an issue.
Well, you can see probably from.
I think you can see the
From the site
rear
plan.
property, I think, on our site plan or survey.
Yeah,
I can share one more time if that would be helpful.
sure.
You can see a little bit here. So here is the neighbor to the west. We have our pervious paving. This darker black line is our property line. And then the neighbor to the east.
Yeah, I was wondering
ahead.
about the neighbors to the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our property line is here, and unfortunately my plan is cut off beyond that. I'm not sure if our survey includes the outline of that structure beyond the north property line.
I think if you look at, I had emailed the aerial photo this morning to Erin. It may not be available to bring up on the screen, but it appeared to me, since there's parking on the other side of the fence there, that there's about, look to me like at least 35 or 40 feet until you get to the next building behind us.
I can pull up at least Google Earth. You can kind of see a little
Yeah.
bit here. Just
Yeah, you'll see there's a driveway and parking
Excellent.
before you come up to the building.
So here's the existing east driveway and the west side driveway.
Right.
Here's the existing fence line and the tree.
Tree with no leaves.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the large
This
maple
is
there.
the proposed area of the
Right,
dumpster enclosure.
So behind, to the north end, there's several parking spaces.
correct. There's like 4 parking spaces, so if they're 9 feet each, it's about 36 feet from the fence to the first building there.
Thank you.
And people entering with their cars would only come in through the east side?
No, there's an easement on the other driveway as well.
Oh, there is,
West.
okay.
Yes, it's a permanent easement. That's what allows us to have the double row of parking, by the way.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
We
that's a
do
good
have
point.
there's a permanent easement for vehicular access from 883 Boston Post Road. I just stepped on the attorney's toes, my apology.
No, we haven't.
I guess I would ask, I do have some staff comments to share, but Attorney Solzbach, if you wanted to have any, I don't know if you're here for questions or if you'd like to present as well.
Well, I don't have a lot to say, but I must say that what was impressive about the staff submission was you set out the requirements for this particular procedure, and we've met them. And often, that's not shared with the commissions that are making decisions. But if you look at page 2, I'm not going to read them to you, but the short of it is that we're improving everything and complying with everything that we can possibly comply with. So the short of it is to get a special exception like this one. It's got to be a bit better than what was there, or at least as good. And here it's substantially better in almost any respect, whether it's aesthetics. The building actually looks more like it was always here than the old one because of the way it was altered over its time. It's set back further from the post road. The life for pedestrians on the post road is far better. The fact that there's something green back there, almost anywhere you look, is an improvement. The drainage works. There's somewhere for all that water to go besides back out to the post road. So in terms of complying with the requirements of 4.4 and what ideally you'd be looking at, for once we've done that, and I'm happy to be part of this. I wish there were one of these in Guilford, where I live.
We're not that far away.
No, I'll be visiting this one.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions on the legal side? I think this one's pretty clean and clear. I mean, it's not an accident that we're already through ZBA with unanimous approval, ACO with unanimous approval, and sort of all the people that you look to at least ensure zoning compliance, or that if you're not compliant, that you've done something about it. And likewise, ACA that has actually far greater breadth than, for example, the Historic District Commission, which can't address things like color, and probably would have had trouble addressing the window that was changed. But it's a very sensitive building. If you look at the detail and the trim, it absolutely looks like it was either always there or should have been. And it's hard to ask for more than that. Otherwise, legal questions, happy to help you with those too.
Thank you. Any questions for the attorney?
No, not me.
I think we're good. Aaron, did you want to present
would
some
like-
of your staff comments?
Sure, I'll share my staff report. I, again, have shared with the commission and the applicant thus far, and would share into the record as well. This is a memo dated today. Most of this, Mr. Garrick has included. that the special exception, and this is a downtown village district major alteration application. And so your relevant sections are 6.2.2.2, 6.15, 15.9, and 6.2.4. The total square footage of the new building proposed is 5,900 square feet. Again, with the restaurant on the first floor and 2 one-bedroom dwelling units on the second. I did want to highlight and let the commission know that the previous use on the site was a 44-seat restaurant with associated or incidental office above. And the total required parking spaces in record of our land use files that were required were 22. And previously for Elizabeth's Cafe, the Planning and Zoning Commission granted a waiver of 8 parking spaces per section 8.2 of our zoning code, which allowed for a total of 14 spaces on the site. Rather than seeking the route of a waiver from the Planning and Zoning Commission, as there has since been case law not supporting a Planning and Zoning Commission essentially waiving your zoning code. That is a job for the Zoning Board of Appeals. They sought the proper avenue by going to the ZBA in December for the reduction in the required parking spaces. Overall, this proposed restaurant is 48 seats and having 5 employees. So that requires, under our parking regulations, a total of 17 spaces, and the 1-bedroom apartments each require 1 parking space. So that total number required is 19. And again, the variance had been granted for a total of 12 parking spaces, and that certificate has been filed on the land records, so that is effective. Again, I'm including the recommendations that Mr. Garrick referenced from ACCA. It was a favorable recommendation for this application. Again, referencing the double hung window on the front instead of the oval shape, considering a flat seamed metal roof, more durable dumpster location, alternate color for shutters, and 3/3 double hung windows in the front as opposed to 4/4, and the 3000 K temperature lighting. All of those suggestions have been incorporated into the revised plans that Mr. Garrick presented earlier to you. We have received, as the applicant indicated, letters from abutters, including concerns. We have 2 letters into the record, one regarding refuse location on site, and additional concerns regarding inadequate parking, safety during construction activities, noise or potential odors from the restaurant, rodent control, and increased traffic on site. Again, it's up to the commission at this point to determine if the applicant has sufficiently addressed those concerns to you. So as far as the special exception permit and the granting, you are bound by 3 conditions for granting a special exception, and this is within your regulations, section 4.4. One, that the proposed use or uses are permitted in the district and that all standards, prerequisites, and conditions have been met. 2, the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served and the appropriate use of the neighboring property will not be substantially or permanently injured. And 3rd is the proposed uses are in accordance with the comprehensive plan. And then further, because this is a major alteration in the downtown village district, in reviewing this for the demolition of a structure, the commission does need to consider architectural quality and the value of the structure and its contribution to the character of this downtown district and the surrounding buildings. If you determine that the structure possesses architectural or historic character, you can deny an application for demolition unless you find that the proposed building to replace the structure will enhance the architectural and historic character of the neighborhood and will be consistent with the regulations and any applicable design standards. And I did, for your reference, include that Appendix A from Section 6.410 of the regulations. First, this is the filed certificate of variance, again, indicating the 12 parking spaces. The second is reference from our zoning files. This one in particular is dated back to 2017. indicating that the Planning and Zoning Commission did grant that waiver of 8 spaces where 22 were required. And again, that it was a 44-seat restaurant on site. And not to continue to scroll, but I did include the downtown district design guidelines, and that is essentially to provide consistency in the downtown village district. And this is the criteria that ACA uses in reviewing design standards for any additions or renovations in this zone. Any questions on
Thank you, Erin.
my information?
I think one additional thing might be to add to that is that maybe it was never permitted, but there is an apartment above as well. Just so you know, there is a single apartment up above. So other than that,
Okay, thank you, Wayne.
it may not be a legal apartment, but it's there.
There nonetheless.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners for the applicants or for Erin for that matter?
A question for the applicant, could he address the impact of the proposed restaurant versus the old restaurant? I mean, how significant is the difference?
Well, it was noted that there were 44 seats, but there's been, the owner had mentioned to me, and it's on our zoning table, that there could have been anywhere from 48 to 50 seats there. So we haven't changed the number of seating at 48 there. Even if at 44, all we've done is add 4 more seats to the restaurant. And for the most part, that will probably be a table for 2, and 2 of those on the front porch during the nicer weather. So the interior part will probably remain around the 44 seats, and but we may have 4 more patrons on the porch in the summertime, let's say. But the new septic system, this is important, has been designed for the 48 seats and the 2 apartments up above.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up on that, Elizabeth's Cafe had a fairly active takeout service. And I know this isn't really a zoning question perhaps, but it may be in terms of safety of traffic safety. Will this restaurant also do takeout?
I don't think there is a tenant at the moment, so I don't think we can really answer that question at this point in time.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah.
In that case, Erin, can we open it up to attendees?
Yes, would you like to do questions first, Madam Chair, or open it up for any questions or comments?
I think actually we can open it up for any kind of questions and comments. Opposition, favor, don't you think, everyone? For
I'm
the
fine with that.
purposes of-
Yeah.
of
that's fine.
maybe keeping the pace going forward quickly.
Sure. Our first attendee with their hand raised is Julie Fury. Julie, we would just ask if you could identify yourself for the record, your name and address.
Okay, hi. My name is Julie Fury. I live at 3 Everett's Lane. I'm one of the properties that is in very close proximity to the project. I also own Julian's Interiors, which is in 883 Boston Post Road. So I'm very familiar with this space because I walk back and forth through that parking lot every day. I did write that I do have concerns about the location of the trash. In the past, Betty did share a dumpster with Salon Venestas, who is the hair place. So there was only 1 dumpster on the property. Can everybody hear me?
Yes?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so there was only 1 dumpster on the property that was on the left side where it is now. It's actually been pushed back further and tucked into the trees. By adding this other dumpster to the property. It is, I know you did an aerial and you looked at the 35 feet, but that is not to unit 3 where I live, which is much closer. And in fact, my patio is on the other side of the fence. So I'm right behind where that dumpster is. In the past, Betty had some waste as well, right adjoining her building where you currently proposing a tree. I guess I would propose that perhaps you would revisit looking at putting the trash, particularly with a restaurant and the noise that's associated with it in the evenings, etc., perhaps closer to the building, maybe where that tree is. And as I mentioned before, there was also a joint relationship where the 3 businesses, Julian's Interiors, Salon Venestas, and Betty Perry, all paid together for one dumpster that's currently there now. Once she left, we shrunk down to something slightly smaller. But rather than adding another dumpster, more potential rodents, animals, flies, the noise, the pickup delivery, the schedule, which tends to be very early in the morning when they come to remove the waste from those dumpsters. So I'm appealing to you to take into consideration adding another dumpster in that area is impactful to at least myself and perhaps to others.
Thank you, Julie. Wayne, do you want to answer? Is it possible to move the receptacle to where I think there's a holly tree on the back, like on the northeast corner of the building? Is that possible?
Oh, Wayne, you're muted. Wayne, we can't hear you. You're
I
muted.
know, I just
there you
noticed
go.
that.
Okay,
Sorry
good.
about that. Oh, you didn't hear all the nice things I was saying about you? As I mentioned, when I sent out all the legal notices to the abutters, I asked, I sent a personal letter to each person in addition to the legal notice, kind of above and beyond what's typically required, but routine for me. I never really heard from anybody, so we didn't get any feedback as to maybe discussing and addressing alternate solutions. So as I stated before, I think we're quite flexible in terms of the way we approach our projects. We don't want it to become a zebra, but we do want to be able to respond to people's thoughts and comments. And I think Mrs. Fury's comments are certainly well taken. And if I can say this, I think working with Gwen, if we can perhaps design an enclosure closer by the building there where the tree is, but screen it with not only a fence and a gate, but some planting on either side of it, then because we are concerned about having greenery, I think we could definitely entertain that. And happy to present that to the Furies as well as any other neighbors who might be concerned about it, and then move it away from the tree and adjacent to the building. I don't think the restaurant would object. It happens to be in a place where the building, by the way, there's no seating in that area. There's no fenestration that looks out toward the north. That happens to be the core area of the building where the restrooms are located. So, and not only that, the grade there is the distance from grade up to the first floor. It's set well below anything there. So I'm sure between Gwen and myself, we can develop a satisfactory solution adjacent to the building.
Thank you.
Yes.
Carol, can I ask a quick question for clarification?
Yes.
You mentioned zebra. Was this that you didn't want to become one? Would this restaurant serve zebra, or what does becoming a zebra
I
mean?
think that might be considered an endangered species. So I don't think so.
Good.
But I wasn't alluding to that. And you're asking the wrong person because I don't eat meat. So
Okay.
I can't answer that question for you, but I'll look into it for you.
Well, you said I don't want to become a zebra. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I meant was if we received a myriad of comments from all abutters, let's say, and we accommodated every single one, then I think it may weaken the concept of the project. But I think by moving the dumpster or the trash container, I like to call it, doesn't weaken the project.
Thank you. Now I understand. I learned a new
Okay,
concept.
sorry about that.
Any other questions from attendees?
Yes. We've additional attendees with their hands raised, Madam Chair. Next is Marius Marinescu. Marius, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marius Marinescu. I'm the dentist at 891 Boston Post Road. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Super. So what I'd like to say is that we're very excited that finally this is happening. But I do have some concerns. We do have some concerns, and I'm not really sure on the side, and that's just a question. On the east side, is the building being moved towards the driveway a little further?
No.
Okay.
There's a 10-foot right of way there. So we've maintained that. The corner of the building you'll see on the existing survey is right on that 10-foot line. We've just made the building narrower than the existing building.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because our main concern really is that the driveway as it is right now, it's quite narrow. And during the brief time that we were there for, I guess, the last 3-4 years, Elizabeth's Cafe suffered some incidents where the cars kind of ran into her building. Actually, it's even the dump truck doesn't really come in there anymore to pick up the garbage. I am there very early in the morning, so I know. And the traffic pattern does need to change because with a lot of that's the other concern. Most of our patients, because we are just a specialized practice, we do root canals. Obviously, most of our patients are older. And sometimes it can pose a hazard if the traffic pattern is not adequate, I think, especially if people come in and out through both driveways. That's going to be very, very difficult and very dangerous, especially if people want to kind of walk from the back of the back of the building to the front of the building. That driveway is really, really bad. The other thing that you guys should know is that the big tree that we have in the back there, it's a black walnut, which for a good part of the summer and fall has big walnuts. And I don't know if anybody wants to park underneath it. We've tried to stay away from it, but you may consider that in your parking scheme because it will dent cars. Just so you know, I don't know, for whatever that's worth, you may look at the tree and consider the dumpster and all that other stuff. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But our major concern is really the traffic pattern and the narrow driveway. That's otherwise, I think everything looks awesome, and we really look forward to having you guys there. But that's the main thing that concerns us. I
Thank
think
you.
that's it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I think I'll let the attorney address the driveway and the parking. But we've already received approval for the parking. So I'm not sure we're in a position or we should revisit that. The driveway, I think actually in some respects, perhaps the pavers will offer some traffic control in terms of that area there. That's just a 10-foot right of way. The driveway is actually about 12 feet wide. I noticed actually at the building to our east there, they recently changed their electrical service and installed a utility pole there in order to bring the service in. So that narrowed things up as well. No complaints. I'm just saying that I noticed that the last time I was there. That is the main ingress and egress for this particular piece of property, even though there is, as I mentioned, the right of way on 883 Boston Post Road. So I don't think in order for the owners to get the maximum development out of the project that we should necessarily be dedicating 2 or 3 more feet to a driveway versus the building, which is already reducing coverage from 36% to 26% and opening up the rear portion of the property to greater flexibility. So I appreciate the favorable comments, and I think because of the scale and the nature of this project, I think that will, and hopefully the 3 neighbors, as I mentioned earlier, will discuss circulation at some point in time and work out a system. Don't forget, this is at this point in time, the owner is in discussions with several restaurants for that space. This is a commercial property. It's always been a commercial property since, in recent memory. And, some of these situations, we've done the very best we can to cure. For example, on the west side, by the way, if you look at the existing survey, the staircase that leads to the perhaps illegal apartment up above, that's actually encroaching upon the driveway on that side. So by actually moving, narrowing the building and increasing that side yard by a foot and not having that staircase there, we've actually cured a part of the perhaps circulation issue there. So maybe that side becomes more of the ingress, and perhaps the eastern side becomes more of the egress side of the property. But I think it's something for the 3 properties to discuss and come to a consensus on.
Madam Chair, Ron Clark,
Okay, great. Thanks.
his hand raised. Ron, if you could please unmute and identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, everybody. Ron Clark, 6 Everts Lane. And I live, I'm one of the abutters. I am the abutter directly to the north, bordering the fence that separates the 2 properties. I wanted to speak about really 2 things. One was, first off, let me say, though, I think that the project itself has been terrifically designed architecturally, and a lot of great work is put into it, and I commend everybody involved for that, and I mean that. My objection, and it's been addressed, maybe talked about, but I just want to reinforce it, is the dumpster. And I never heard of anybody who wants to put a space fence so you can look through and see a dumpster inside it, but that's another story. That location is right outside our bedroom window, a little bit further away than the Furies, but not by much. And the issues with odor and flies and vermin and all that is certainly significance so close, looking out of your bedroom window on top of that. But beyond it, because it's a restaurant use, when does the dumpster get filled? You don't know, of course, you don't have a tenant when the restaurant is going to close. Might be as late as 1 o'clock in the morning during the week or 2 o'clock in the morning on weekends. And that's when all the trash gets rolled out in barrels, glass gets dumped in the dumpster. And the real commotion takes place right outside the bedroom window. I agree completely with the idea of putting that facility adjacent to your building where that noise and bother doesn't occur. And, I think if I'm looking at the plans correctly, I don't think that having that facility outside your bathrooms would be particularly objectionable. And I remember from the ZBA hearing, the rationale for moving the dumpster to the rear of the property by our property was we don't want customers walking by trash, which I thought was interesting rationalization. So I hope that'll be taken care of. The observation I have, and for those of you who don't know, I've served on P&Z for more years than I can count and just got off about 1.5 years ago. So I have that P&Z view of the world, wherever I go, but also 19 years looking out over this parking lot. And believe me, when Elizabeth's was in business, and I don't think there were anywhere close to 44 actual seats in that restaurant. I've talked to a number of people. We ate there often. It was probably closer to 30. But nonetheless, there were parking problems galore. Some of the issues that Dr. Mariescu talked about, people trying to get in one driveway, people trying to get out at the same time, backing out onto the post road, parking wars where there was signs, Elizabeth's parking only, this building parking only, be towed. There were tow trucks back there. It became like a Hatfield and McCoy situation. Hopefully that could be resolved. I'm a bit surprised the property owner had not approached long time ago the adjacent property owners and worked out an agreement. To say there might be one at this stage, I find interesting. But the other thing is, forget the variance for a minute. There is a large parking problem in the area already. So on the assumption that there aren't enough parking spaces in the lot, and at peak times there won't be. That's just reality, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But the only public parking really available close to the restaurant and those other businesses is on Birnbaum Lane. I drove down there about 5 o'clock tonight, and there were 15 cars lined up from East Wharf all the way back. The restaurant isn't open. There's no customers. There's no employees. I'm sure they'd all be parking on Birnbaum Lane. Additionally, it's not summertime. And in the summer, we know what happens with traffic and just the amount of people going to eat at restaurants, Barbouchi, and so on and so forth. Parking, and this doesn't affect me. I'm happy over on the other side of the fence. But it is a real problem. And for the first summer, it's going to be tested even more because now the General's residence is going to be fully occupied. They have limited parking, and that's the only place in the area where their guests or visitors are going to park if they have to park off-site. Additionally, Barbouchi has gotten approval, I think last year, right, Carol, from the Planning and Zoning Commission to weatherize that.
Yeah, reconfigure the front. Yeah.
So they have more seating than they had in the past. You have now, because of the problems with Hammonasset and the free access, and I've seen it many times in the summer, Saturdays and Sundays, people parking on Birnbaum Lane, going down East Wharf with their beach chairs or on their bicycles with their beach chairs because either the lot's full or they don't have a pass for the beach. So that's even more spaces taken up. Scranton Seahorse Inn gets busy. The School of Rock has things. Just it's really, really busy. And to think that a waiver for the spaces, in fact, at the ZBA meeting, and I hate to go on, the ZBA meeting, the commissioner who made what I thought was the least compelling argument, saying, well, they can park behind the library. or park behind the post office. It's only a 6-minute walk. Well, who would go out to dinner? You know, hey, let's park behind the movie theater and walk down there. They'll come down, they'll drive in the parking lot, find out there are no spaces. And then to find a space, what do? They go all the way back up to the center of town, come down Birnbaum Lane, find there is a space or there isn't. It's just a perfect storm. And I'm not saying it can't be resolved. Certainly the idea and the concept of shared parking might go a long way to resolving that. But I think it's within the commission's purview, and I respectfully suggest that they give consideration to having traffic analysis done to evaluate how much of the problem could be impacted by shared parking. That would work to Dr. Mariescu's benefit, to you know, the property that Julian's and Solandra's Benistas are in, and you know, get some expertise, including, how about if there's 2 driveways and they're both 10 feet wide, how about making one way, a loop around the building? You know, those are the kinds of things that should have been investigated and I think need to be investigated, because parking is a very serious matter. Plus, you know, the ledges were approved, and that's another 5 housing units directly across the street. And there's no easy solution to find additional parking. So I think steps should be taken. And I respectfully ask the commission to look into this a little bit deeper. And if I was a restaurateur, I'd certainly be interested and be concerned about the parking situation as it exists, because if they can't get to my restaurant, they won't eat there. So I hope I didn't go on too long, but like I say, I think it's a great concept, but I think the parking could be the gorilla in the room, and it needs to be somehow, you know, managed. And right now, it's totally you know, it's a vast unknown, and there's no reversing it once it happens. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but that's pretty much my view of the world.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Madam Chair.
I can address, as we mentioned with the previous person, Mrs. Fury, we're going to explore and redesign the trash container location. So that part of Mr. Clark's presentation, I believe, has been asked and answered. I probably defer to Attorney Sulzbach regarding the parking. We have a variance for the parking. And I better not say much more than that. I'll let the attorney address the variance that we received, and the Zoning Board of Appeals felt that our solution was responsive to the needs of this area of the community.
Yeah, we're on the verge here of becoming one of those no good deeds going unpunished. If you look at the long list of improvements that this project makes to this site, this area, this part of town, and there are lots of them, and they're not cheap. And none of them would happen without the parking that's been approved by ZBA. You know, I don't think anyone would doubt. Certainly, I actually do hang around there in the summer. You know, it's tight, and it's an issue that faces Madison. But if we already have that parking in 2 ways. One, we can keep the old building just like it was, and nobody seemed to like Elizabeth's as a parking matter, putting aside this restaurant. And you know, the fact that nobody created a collegial system among the property owners at that time is something that we can't necessarily address. But we certainly have a logical and ongoing interest in doing just that, to the extent that any improvement can be made by arrangements among these property owners as opposed to something larger. we wouldn't be making the kind of investment that we have in the site and the building and the ambiance of this part of Madison to inflict on our patrons and tenants, something that's less pleasant than it could otherwise be. So that's going to be an ongoing interest. It's something that my client has at least discussed. But we need to know that we're going to have a project before we do any of that. As I say, the parking problem is far larger than continuing the use that's been here all along. So I think we've met all of the prerequisites and requirements that Erin sets forth in her memorandum to you, and more. And we look forward to actually making all this happen.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have two, actually, Dr. Marinescu and Ron Clark both have their hands raised again for comments.
We'd appreciate short comments at this point. That'd be great.
Dr. Marinescu, if you could identify yourself again for the record.
Yes, my name is Marius Marinescu. I'm the dentist next door. I'm also the owner of the building. Okay, and I will tell you. Okay, so my issue is not with parking and the fact that we don't have as much parking as we need. We can figure out who's going to park where. My problem is with the traffic pattern that's generated. What we should know, what every one of you should know, is that there are only 2 driveways for 3 buildings, and what are 4 businesses plus tenants, which makes it very, very dangerous. Our patients, our elderly patients, if patrons are going to drive through in a particular pattern or haphazard pattern as it is right now, there will be accidents. I will invite every one of the board members there to drive to that place, drive into my the driveway that I share with former Elizabeth's, and look at the dents and the pylons and her building. She repaired her building numerous times because people ran into it. This is a fact. This is I'm not making this stuff up. Now, if you want to do a one-way pattern, traffic pattern, you're not going to be able to get the garbage trucks in. The driveway is way too narrow. Bad things will happen. That's my experience. I have no problem with anybody moving in on all the improvements. We can enforce parking if need be. I have no problem with people parking wherever they can. My problem is the traffic, and my problem is people being reckless or careless after leaving the restaurant or going into the restaurant. There are a lot of people that will be seated there, and there will be a lot of cars for very few parking spots. They'll be going in and out, and there will be accidents. And I had to put cameras over there, and I can tell you, this is a fact. Okay, now it's the decision that you're making is going to regard safety. It's not merely where you place a car. That's all I have to say. It's basically in your hands, but people will it will be unsafe. So
if I may respond to the doctor.
Sure.
I think the points are well taken. As I mentioned, we have ingress and egress capabilities on the east and the west side for the building. But I think ultimately, and by the way, the neighbors could call our client too. They should get together to discuss perhaps a one-way solution. We do have that cross aisle at the rear of our parking area. So that it's not as though we've created parking spaces from the back of the building all the way to the rear property line. There's a cross aisle there. So in my opinion, that would lend itself rather well for a shared arrangement between the doctor's property and Ms., I forget her name, Mirando's next door. And then I think I believe Michael Ott, if we didn't put it on his drawings, we discussed a stop sign on 883. It might be on his drawings. Mike, maybe you
I
can.
think it
answer
is
that.
actually.
But we did discuss it in our early design stages for the project. So I think the three neighbors, they'll have to get together at some point in time and discuss which driveway should be in and which driveway should be out. It might be that the driveway on the west might have to be used at least by the trash company for both ingress and egress. But I think that I don't see a very complicated design solution to what the doctor is proposing. So, but I think that's something that my client and the owner needs to work out with them at a later date. And it's not necessarily, as Attorney Solbach has mentioned, we can't resolve all the parking issues of Madison with this one small project. It's just not possible. We're not adding anything to the problem because we've increased the parking of Elizabeth's by 33%. We've gone from 9 spaces to 12 spaces. I think that's a rather generous enhancement to the parking issue. It may not seem like a lot of spaces, but we haven't reduced anything. And as Attorney Solzbach has alluded to several times this evening, we've cured and many of the nonconformities in order to make this a successful project for both the owner and for the municipality. So, but I agree with the doctor, but I think it's something to be worked out with the property owners, not at a planning and zoning meeting. Just my opinion, by the way.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Ron Clark.
Ron Clark,
His
once
hand's
more.
raised again. Ron, if you could identify yourself again, please.
Ron Clark, 6 Everett's Lane again. Thank you. 3 things. Number one, the doctor's observation about the trash trucks. I can say that wouldn't be a problem because they come about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's highly unlikely they're going to hit any traffic coming in the other direction up the driveway if it turns into a one-way type of situation. Maybe entirely different for all the delivery trucks delivering to the restaurant. But I mean, as far as the trash is concerned, that shouldn't be a problem. Number 2, I would hope or ask that the commission keep Mrs. Fury and myself, advised as to how successful this move of the garbage location is, and that's really garbage is the byproduct of a restaurant. And thirdly, the traffic, the parking issues that exist, the serious issues that exist today in the winter, and there is no restaurant, no employees, there now. So that's why I just suggest that if all this work is going to be done, that the commission might want to be able to have the advice and counsel of a traffic expert to at least find, and I acknowledge you have your variance and so forth, but find the solution or the configuration that makes the most sense and sign off on that, because you're right, Attorney Solzbach, it's going to be a problem. It is a problem. It's not one that you created, but you may add to. So I want to be brief, and that's as brief as I can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me offer that we'll obviously resubmit a drawing for the trash container location. I don't see an issue with that. as being a condition of approval. I think before we can address the circulation, which I can address, I've designed many parking lots. I've designed projects from small projects like this to projects over 250,000 square feet. But I think between Michael Ott, Gwen, and myself, with a consensus among the three owners, then we can develop a parking solution. But if we don't even know if all three owners are going to be in agreement. So right now we have to proceed, and Attorney Sulzbach can correct me, based upon the fact that we have a right-of-way to the west, we have another right-of-way to the east, and we've increased the parking by 33%. And if anything, we've helped the situation. We haven't hurt the situation. So, but Mr. Clark and the others, Mr. and Mrs. Fury, will definitely, as soon as possible, maybe within the next few days or a week, submit a revised plan with the trash container location. So you can rest assured about that.
Thank you.
As the hearing was opened initially in February, the commission has 35 days to hold the hearing open or receive new information. So in order to hold the hearing open to receive any revisions to the site plan, the applicant would need to grant an extension to the commission to do just that. So if that's information you're looking at as far as the alternate locations for a dumpster, is that something you're willing to?
Is it something, Aaron, that we need to keep the hearing open on, or is it something that can be a condition of approval?
Yeah, could we add it as a condition?
I would.
I think it affects the design of the site plan. That's really at the discretion of the commission, but to make sure that you have adequate turning area, in the parking lot, or if that affects any other.
But if we locate the trash container area where the tree is presently, let's say, for example, I have that reserved delivery area there. It's more than adequate for a service vehicle to access any sort of trash container there. So I'll leave it up to the attorney, but I think since this is not a significant item, it's an important item, but it can be a condition of approval. But again, I'll leave it up to the attorney whether or not he thinks we should extend the hearing, the continuance.
Well, I'm not the applicant, but what I can say is that given Wayne's confidence that he can design an enclosure and location for the dumpster, as we call them, adjacent to the building, which would satisfy and solve the primary objections of the people who are on the north, and do that consistent with the traffic pattern that's already shown. It would seem to me that making that a condition of approval, then if he doesn't do it, then he has violated that condition. But so the risk is on us to deliver on that. And so in that sense, that's what we would certainly propose rather than continuing this, particularly given the way these agendas are running these days. So that would be our preference.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners after what we've just heard?
No.
If not, could I have a motion then that we close the hearing and move to deliberation?
Motion to close.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Motion from John and second by Bob Reinhardt. Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Any thoughts to get deliberations started.
Well, question, is it within our power to get a request more detailed traffic pattern analysis at this point?
That's a question, I think, for Aaron, since the zoning board of appeals did the variance.
A variance was granted for the parking spaces. As far as internal traffic flow, this is, you do have a design from a civil engineer and a licensed architect for the layout. The curb cuts and onto Boston Post Road are regulated through Connecticut DOT, as this is a state highway. So
Does that answer your question, John?
the other thing is that the hearing is closed, so you can't request any additional information at this time.
Well, that answers
So
it.
that's your bigger issue.
That answers it for sure.
That's the bigger, yeah.
So you need to make a decision based on the information before you and the plans proposed.
Okay. Well, I was getting at the variance that they granted. So they granted the variance for the parking.
Which affects the traffic, but yeah, I think to the point of whether we can now ask for a traffic study, no, we've closed the hearing.
Got it.
Is it legitimate for us to approve this request with the proviso that the dumpster be moved? That seems to me to be a very reasonable request.
Yeah, I think we can add it as a condition.
Wayne is, okay. Okay.
Yes, that can be drafted and has been drafted for your consideration if you're looking to deliberate and take action this evening.
Yeah, I would like to see that. Yes.
Bob Reinhardt, any questions or thoughts?
No, I looked at this before the meeting started, and I think all the main questions I had were primarily on the location of the dumpster. That seemed to be a primary concern, and that was most of it. I think the question on the garbage has been answered. The question on the traffic I had not considered, but I'm not sure what role we have in that, given that it's a multi-tenant owner situation. And it's really, I think, up to them. I'm thinking that there's been a restaurant there for a long time. They're not
Right.
changing. The request is not to change what has been there. The traffic, I've been there. The traffic's always a problem. You park where you can and you walk over. So
Yeah.
the main thing to me was primarily the garbage. I think in looking at the layouts that were presented, it seems like there is a definite solution for the traffic if all three want to get together and put it together. I think down the road, is it the Schwab one? There's some other offices down the road. There's like 2 or 3 offices together, and they've got a traffic pattern that's been put together, and it appears to be different buildings
Yeah, there's
as well.
some models that would be useful, I think, for the tenants, for the owners to get together and discuss. So it seems to me there's certainly potential for that.
Yeah, I think there's a definite solution there, but I think it's, unless someone says that was up to us to make that happen, I think it's a obvious next step for them.
Seems to me too that the parking issue is much broader than this particular establishment. And it's if the restaurateur wants to take a chance that people are going to be unwilling to walk 6 minutes to the restaurant, well, that should not be our concern.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
I agree with that too.
I do too. Michael or John, anything else you want to add? John, are you?
I've been to the restaurant a number of times, and I could be wrong, but I thought you had to enter from the west side and leave from the east side. Am I wrong about that? The old restaurant.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. We can't have any additional
Okay.
New.
put on that.
John Morgan?
Yeah, can you hear me, Carol?
It's hard to
Not
hear you.
really.
Very difficult.
Yeah, it's,
You're still on another.
no, it's really low.
Okay, my
Oh,
end
that's
is-
better.
That's better.
Okay.
That's better.
Sorry. I was saying, to me, the traffic is what it is. It's what, to me, what it most likely always has been. And it's some of the self-correcting problem. If people can't park and get to the restaurant, they won't drive to the restaurant. I think there's a lot of people.
We're losing you.
It is
So
very
what-
challenging. It's hard to hear you, John.
No, okay. All right. I'm good now.
Okay. I think you're agreeing with us about.
I hate to
Yeah.
say this, but we could
Yeah.
hear you better when your hands are up by your ears.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
make you do that, but it seems to be a little easier to hear you.
I'm going to disconnect this. So, okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Save it for the vote. John Duza, anything else you'd like to?
No, I agree with Bob's assessment on the traffic and the parking.
And I think we've got a solution for the dumpster.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Are we ready to make a motion?
I would move to approve the application with the understanding on the, and can we see the language on the dumpster? Or can we read it
I
now?
have a draft. I do have a draft resolution for the
Oh, great.
commission's
Okay, I'll shut up.
consideration.
You, okay.
I do actually have a recommended edit. And so I'll just screen
Ah.
share and
Oh, great.
get some text up for you here. You have some standard conditions proposed, one referencing, and I would recommend that a commissioner actually read through the motion for the record. But I do, my recommendation is to reword this condition number 2, and rather than limiting to just a fencing, my thought is that this should read that the applicant is responsible for coordinating adequate pedestrian and vehicular access and safety measures on site during construction activities. And then this standard ENS control conditions and subsurface stormwater system should be inspected by the design engineer during construction, and an as-built of that system submitted prior to final zoning compliance. And again, a basic inspection and maintenance chart for maintaining that subsurface stormwater system. And the applicant should be responsible for coordinating and obtaining necessary approvals for any work within the state right-of-way. And then that last condition with respect to the refuse area, that the current refuse area be relocated to the rear, the north side of the proposed building within the area currently designated for ornamental tree. And that way you have that specific square that's shown on the proposed site plan, knowing that that's where that enclosure would be relocated to.
That sounds great, Erin. Are you able to edit from where you are or?
Not in this format. I apologize. I have them handwritten, but this is a PDF, and I don't have the
yeah.
ability to edit that currently.
Okay.
So I would just, if you're willing to read that, I'm happy to add condition 2 and number 8.
If one
as
of
you're
us
going.
needs to read this, I'll volunteer because I can read pretty quickly.
Okay, go for it.
Sure.
Okay, the following draft resolution is offered. The Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approves application 2304-555 Boston Post Road, map 39, lot 20, D District, Downtown Village, District Major Alteration and Special Exception. Permit application per section 6222 15-9 and 6-4 to demolish existing mixed-use building and construct a new two-story, 5,900 square foot mixed-use building with restaurant on first floor and 2 residential units on second floor, on-site parking and associated site improvements as shown on site development plan set by Summerhill Civil Engineers and land surveyors PC sheets C11, C21, C23, C31, C34 dated 1/18/23 revised to 3/1/23. Site lighting plan 8A5 BPR by General Drafting and Design Incorporated dated 1/18/23 revised to 3/1/23. Site lighting plan. Oh, wait a second. I just read that. Did I skip a line? I think, oh no.
You
maybe not.
jumped, that's all.
Yeah, I jumped. Okay, I'll continue where I stopped. 8A5 BPR by General Drafting and Design Incorporated dated 1/18/23. Landscape Plan 8A5 Boston Post Road by Wolf Tree Landscape Architects dated 1/18/23 revised to 2/28/23. Architectural drawings by Wayne Garrett AIA 8A5 BPR sheets 1/5 dated 1/18/23 revised to 1/27/23 with the following conditions. 1, that the zoning officer be notified at least 48 hours prior to commencement of any regulated activity. 2, 6 feet tall temporary fencing, and this is the one we just modified.
Yes.
Eric, do you want to interrupt and read again
Sure.
what you did? Please
Number
do.
2, the applicant is responsible for coordinating adequate pedestrian and vehicular access and safety measures on site during construction activities.
Thank you. 3, that all erosion and sedimentation controls be installed prior to any site disturbance, be maintained for the duration of construction activities and until the site is sufficiently stabilized to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. 4, the subsurface stormwater system shall be inspected by the design engineer during construction to verify consistency with the approval plans. 5, an as-built survey of the stormwater system components should be submitted to the commission with written verification from a licensed engineer that the system was constructed in accordance with the approved design plans. This submittal shall be completed prior to the issuance of a final zoning certificate. Let me lower this. Okay, thank you. Okay. 6, a condensed inspection and maintenance chart should be prepared by the design engineer, identifying the inspection, management, and maintenance frequency required for each component of the stormwater treatment system. This chart should be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer for review prior to the issuance of a final certificate of zoning compliance. 7, the applicants shall coordinate and obtain necessary approval for paver sidewalk installation prior to activities within the right of way.
And number 8,
And number 8,
that the current refuse area be relocated to the rear, the north side of the proposed building within the area currently designated for an ornamental tree.
Okay.
and in the event that changes to the approved plans are required as a result of other agency permitting to support the proposed activity, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to review said changes and may require modification of this approval. This approval is made based upon the finding that the proposed use is a permitted use in the district and that standards, prerequisites, and conditions specified by the regulations have been met. The public convenience and welfare will be substantially served and the appropriate use of neighboring properties will not be substantially or permanently injured. The proposed use is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. The effective date of this approval is March 31st, 2023, and upon filing of the certificate of special exemption modification on the land records.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Any further discussion?
When we move the trash area, does that afford an additional parking slot?
There's still a large tree there.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I
That's right.
Maybe a bench under the tree.
Maybe a bench. Okay.
All right, if there's no further discussion,
No.
take it to a
Nope.
vote. All in favor of approving as read?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next public hearing. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing for 23-07 applicant David Klein?
I'll move David over here as a
So
panel.
moved.
You physically move him? Well, we make the motion. So moved. A second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Welcome, David Klein. You're muted and silhouetted.
Hello. Silhouetted. How do I do that? Okay, start video. There we go. Hi.
Go.
Welcome.
So I'm going to share my screen here with there we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
we can.
Okay, great. So what I'm seeking here is a text amendment to my special exception. I need this in order to allow for expansion of current activities on my property, which include retail. I have 2 stores there in addition to my golf range. There's the Molly Rose Consignments and a restaurant. And then I have a small house on a separately deeded parcel that I rent out. It's an old cottage. So the current text limits the amount of space that I can rent. So it prevents sort of investments and enhancements to the property that can provide services to residents and increase revenue to the town. I have the 2 businesses that rent space in my main building off Route 79. There's Amato's Pizza and Molly Rose Consignments. Would both like to expand their businesses, but they can't because my current special exception limits the amount of space I can rent in the building. The language we went for over 20 years ago limited it to 2,500 square feet. Then I have that to go back to the house on the north side. It's in very poor condition, has a poor foundation. It was just built on some stones, basically almost just sunk into the soil, the main old part of the cottage. And even the foundation under the additions isn't very good either. It's not worth investing in. It's really kind of low-grade housing. There's a couple pictures of it quickly. I'll try and move quickly. Back to Molly Rose. Currently has about 1,250 square feet. If you've ever been in the store, it's very tight. It's got a lot of inventory in there. She could use at least another 1,000 square feet or more to display furniture. I don't know, Brittany, if you're there, I don't know if you can get her in to comment on her own behalf. Erin, is that possible?
It's like Erin may have stepped out for a second. Oh, there she is.
No, I'm here. I apologize. Yes,
Looks
I
like Molly
have
Rose
Molly
is here.
Consignment. I can move her over if she'd like to talk as well. Let's see if she'll rejoin as a panelist here. She's coming over.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name's Brittany Walsh. I own Molly Rose Diamonds. I've had my store almost 10 years, and I grew up in Madison and graduated from Daniel Hand. So I love that I can be giving back to the town and run a business. And I'd love to stay in the location that I am and in our town. But in order to do so, I'm really outgrowing my space there and would love to be able to offer more to our customers by expanding the store and being able to sell some more furniture and just make the flow and function of the store run smoother. And I think it's really important to support the businesses in town, and it benefits a lot of the residents in town who shop at Molly Rose, and they can buy items or with good quality, but not have to spend so much money on the item. It also helps the customers who consign their items at the store. It keeps items out of landfills and helps people to raise money with items that they no longer use or need. So I think it would be a great opportunity to be able to expand and be a better service for everybody. So I would appreciate your consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on here to the next. We have Amato's. So the pizza place, he's got a very small little shop in there of about 730 square feet. He's got one oven. He really needs another oven because he's got people waiting for their pizzas. Sometimes, for 40 minutes on a Friday night or something. A lot to have people waiting around. And then he'd like to expand his business as well. He'd like to have indoor dining and then potentially some outdoor dining. Probably not on the street side, but on the north side of the building, there's a pond. So it'd be attractive to create some kind of a outdoor seating area there, or that may wrap around some of the west side of the building. We're not sure. I mean, that's all something that we'd probably have to come back to you with a site plan for anyway. But first I just need to change the language, to see if in principle, the commission thinks that, this is in accord with kind of the goals of the town and the goals of the for development in that particular area of the town. I don't know if Amato is there or if he'd like to comment. I don't know if he's still around. Do you see him, Aaron, or?
I don't see a motto.
Okay, so he may not be there to comment, but okay, so that's that. So, the basic overall plan then is I'd have to move some of the golf operation and kind of configure how that uses the property and the building. So I may be able to move it to one end of the building, so it occupies a smaller part of the building. Or the other thing is to build another small building somewhere on the property that can accommodate the golf operation. I am also in discussions as far as developing the golf range as a solar farm. So that's been happening over a period of a number of years. It hasn't happened yet, but the people I'm working with have actually submitted another bid with Eversource to get a contract basically to sell the energy. It's a bidding process. You have to submit your bids in March. They announce winners in June and July, and they get many proposals, and they just take the ones that are most profitable for them. And it's kind of a limited amount. They don't do an awful lot of it. So this year we are making another shot at it to see if that happens. If it doesn't, then I may still be in the golf business. If if the solar farm does work out, then I wouldn't have any issues as far as trying to rejigger that business. I'd be just give the whole building basically to Brittany and Amato and let them expand their activities. As far as the house on the north side, the idea there is to, not some kind of huge development. It's just to replace that house in a way that can provide a little extra housing in town, without a big concentration of housing in one place. Modest sized apartments, 3 to 5 living units. The number, as I say here, depends on space, water, septic. Those are all things that, again, I have to go, and develop a site plan for, do elevations, do all the engineering. So again, the goal here is just to get a sense that we can change the language in my special exception that says, okay, the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission sees this as an activity that we're willing to consider in this area as potentially a positive development, before I go out and, spend all that time and money developing actual plans. And then I'd have to come back to you anyway with the site plan to get final approval and for you to review, all the particulars. So what I'm looking at, my conception though, is all in one building, maybe a couple accessible units on the first floor. I'm thinking of a 2-story building. Those are accessible in terms of, elderly people or maybe even handicapped people. And a plan absolutely to manage them as long-term rentals. So this wouldn't be something where these Airbnb people coming in and out. That works for some people, but I find that can be as a lot, even more work than having long-term rentals and trying to, and you have to furnish them and you have to provide all kinds of day-to-day services for people like that. And I really do believe in providing, decent long-term housing for people in the community. I've, seen that there are elder people who need housing. Another thing I've observed a lot is there are a lot of divorced people who need housing, oddly enough, because they, you get divorced, you divide your assets, and suddenly a lot of people are somewhat impoverished by it, and they need, reasonable rentals in the community. And a lot of that is so they can keep their kids in the school system too. They don't want to start having to move their kids around. Okay, next slide. So my text amendment, potential benefits I see is, increases the property's value. So there'll be a bit more tax revenue to the town, and it can provide some jobs and services to residents. So the plan of conservation and development, I realize this is an old plan from 2013. We haven't seen the new one yet.
Working on it
soon. No, it's coming soon. But, in this plan, 79% of residents agreed that Madison, should look at ways to, increase business activity in the town in other areas outside of the Madison Center so that, there's a little bit less of that congestion that we just discussed. 65% agree that that the town needs other locations for these businesses. And then diversifying Madison's housing portfolio. We all know that's been a big topic of discussion for several years now. So in the survey too, we had 81% of respondents agreed, we need to address the needs of an aging population. 72% agreed Madison needs some more housing that's a bit more affordable. Just so you get an idea of where the property is located, it's just north of the intersection of Green Hill Road and Route 79. So that's where that red circle is. This is, like a Google map that shows the outline of the property. Right where the the bubble with Klein's Golf Ranges is my main building along Route 79. I put a little red square at the back because there is a chance perhaps at some point that we'd consider adding on to the building at the back, not on the street side, so it wouldn't be visible from the street. And that would be mostly for Brittany's benefit so that, she would have enough space to accommodate the amount of expansion that she thinks she needs. And then this square over here is, you can see there's a separate property line here. That's where this little red cottage is, and I'd be removing that cottage in order to build this new building of 3 to 5 apartments. And that's the approximate location on the property of where that building would be. So you can see there's a fairly substantial setback from Route 79. So, its visibility from the road wouldn't be that great, actually, because there's quite a few trees between the road and the site of that building. And I'm very interested in preserving as many of those trees and as much of that natural landscape as possible. There's also a good buffer between myself and the neighbors on the north side. This area, let's see, all through here, I don't know if you can see that with my pointer, is all open space owned by the Madison Land Conservation Trust. So between the building and the nearest neighbors, there's got to be at least a couple hundred yards, if not more. Let's see. So here's a site plan, that shows in a little bit more detail. Here's the house, here's the main building right here. And then if I was to add on to the building again at the back on this corner, Amato's idea for outdoor seating would be over here on the north side between this pond and the end of the building initially, or maybe at the back too, or one or the other, depending on how things work out. And that's that for that, I guess, for now. So let's see. I guess I'll stop the share for now. Those are my slides, unless somebody has some questions and would like me to go back to one of the slides to discuss something.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions for David while we're still sharing screens?
Well, I have a question regarding the Molly Rose and the Amato's expansion. Is he suggesting that they could expand within the existing building that's there?
Yes.
Then that requires some type of approval from planning and zoning.
It does, because I'm there under a special exception permit, and the language of the existing special exception permit allows me to lease up to 2,500 square feet.
Okay.
And so so in order for me to do much more than that, I've got to, amend that language.
Okay.
And you want to go to a second floor in that same building as well, correct?
No, not in this building. In the proposed apartment building.
I see.
And that parcel on the north corner of the property, the northeast corner, there's an old cottage there. I could, the plan would be to remove that and put a building in just about the same footprint of stories.
This is Bob Reinhardt. Quick question. Your property doesn't run along Green Hill Road, does it?
No.
It doesn't look like it. I'm going to confirm.
No, it doesn't. I have, there's a couple on the, southeast corner. There's 2 properties between myself and Green Hill. And then if you go in a little bit, there's one large piece that goes all the way through from my property line to Green Hill Road.
And your plan is to build the housing in the, I think you believe the east corner where the old cottage is.
That's right.
Okay.
You
Thank
can see it's from the site plan here. It's actually a separately deeded piece that has, the property
Okay, I see. Yeah.
marked on the site plan.
Got
And
it.
Yeah.
it's about 9 acres.
Actually, that's only 2.31, actually. It's,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
and the main part is 11.7.
Sorry,
Erin had made a little mistake in her.
I
thing.
will, yes. I'll
Whoops.
clarify that in
Yeah.
my staff report. It's a total of just under 15 acres for both parcels.
Mhm.
And where, reading 90,000 square feet, it's just over 2 acres, that smaller parcel there.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Actually, that's not a bad segue. If there are no other questions, maybe Aaron, you could go ahead and share your staff notes.
Carol, Joe Morgan, I do have a question.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah.
The special exception permit covers both of these properties?
Yes, is that
Okay.
correct? Yeah, this is one of the
David, you
special exceptions where they define it by the former property owners around it, but it's the two parcels.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, based on the footage of the way they define it, if you look at the property boundary, distances of the property boundaries, it would encompass both of the parcels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, David, if you are willing to stop screen sharing, I'll just briefly go through. You touched on quite a bit of what I have in the staff report, and I did share this with David and the commission. But just as this is a text amendment, I wanted to just briefly go through what the commission needs to know here. Okay, so this is my staff report dated March 16th, 2023, and is part of the public hearing record for Mr. Klein's proposed text amendment. I did include the entire text language for you of 4.1.35 of the zoning regulations, and the highlighted red areas are the proposed modifications that Mr. Klein is proposing, including to allow multifamily housing and a non-franchised restaurant with outdoor seating area. And then the additional changes, again, are to increase the total floor area allowed and clarify that as indoor floor area. And that will increase from 10,000 square feet to 35,000 square feet. And then in section 4.1.35.1.9 would be to expand the area allowed for leased commercial space from a total of 2,500 square feet to indoor area of 10,000 square feet. And then lastly, our proposed regulations for standards for the multifamily component, which that will be confined to just the smaller parcel, which is map 78 lot 16, as David indicated on the site plan. The maximum number of units are 5, no more than 2 bedrooms in each unit for a total of 10 bedrooms. Maximum floor area for each unit would be 1,200 square feet. The total floor area shall not exceed 15,000 square feet. And that includes not just finished living space, but utility rooms, storage rooms, and accessory buildings. Additionally, he's proposing that the multifamily building will not exceed 2 stories for human occupancy, and off-street parking, which is consistent with recent changes in Connecticut general statutes for 1 parking space per studio or 1 bedroom unit, and 2 parking spaces for any unit with 2 bedrooms or more. Now, so I just wanted to highlight that this is rather unique, I think, to Madison, that we have this entire section of our zoning code as it is written. These are site-specific special exception uses. And this was historically done by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and was during previous updates to the zoning code, basically codified into one specific section of the regulations. A lot of these special permit areas are located in residential zones and would otherwise be non-conforming in the area. So as David indicated, any changes to the specific language or uses on these properties does require a text amendment to the zoning regulations. Again, this particular area in the zoning regulations does consist of those two parcels, map 72, lot 27, and map 78, lot 16. Again, to clarify, the total area is just under 15 acres, and the smaller lot is not 9 acres, excuse me, it's just over 2 acres. And there are quite a bit of inland wetlands prevalent on both of these parcels. So again, I did kind of highlight these, allowing multifamily housing by special exception, increasing total allowable building size, and also increasing allowable square footage for the rented commercial uses. And then these specific standards for the multifamily housing. One of my questions was, to determine the extent of potential future development, it's important to know what the existing indoor floor areas of the buildings are at this time. I think David highlighted that for you in his presentation, but could otherwise clarify that for the commission so you know what existing conditions are. Currently, where not otherwise specified, the property is subject to the RU1 zone regulations. So other than specific text in this section, we do revert back to the RU1 zone regs. And the maximum lot coverage in an RU1 zone is 10%. However, there is not a maximum floor area calculation in this residential zone. The multifamily component that's being proposed on the smaller lot is where the single family dwelling currently exists. There are significant wetlands in the area. It's unclear at this time whether or not the proposed density can be achieved. Feasibility studies have not begun. In the proposed subsection 4.1.35.1.10.3, I didn't make that up, I'm sorry. It's a mouthful. Mr. Klein is seeking a maximum of 2 stories for human occupancy. Our regulations don't typically define stories or floor area for human occupancy. So my recommendation is to simplify this subsection. The current maximum building height in an RU1 zone is 30 feet. Given the sensitive nature of the site, it might be desirable for the applicant to increase building height rather than expanding footprint for any proposed construction. Perhaps changing the language to focus on building height rather than the number of stories could be more appropriate. The commission may want to entertain increasing the allowed building height, maybe 5 or 10 feet, which could help the applicant achieve the desired density while limiting impacts to the surrounding natural resources, like the inland wetlands. Again, there are several letters that I did share with the commission and I believe are uploaded now also for on the website, expressing support for the expansion of the commercial businesses that are on site and have been there for many years, actually. This concept of multifamily housing is one that the commission should consider as Connecticut general statutes 8-2 have been revised in 2021 as part of Public Act 21-29, where you're now required to address disparities in housing needs. Enacting these or amending regulations, you are acting legislatively, again, not administratively, so you do have broad discretion. And there's typically that 2-part test again to apply if your legislative action is proper. And that's, is your action related reasonably to the police powers that are set forth in your enabling statutes, section 8-2? And is the action in accord with our comprehensive plan of our municipality? So you are also, as you know, a combined commission. So in making a finding and adopting any regulation change, you would need to make a finding that it's consistent with the current plan of conservation and development, which is again our master plan that establishes our recommendations for future development of our community. And again, our zoning regulations are one of our tools that we use to implement these goals. Let me know if you have any questions about any of my report.
Thank you, Erin. I actually have a question regarding the height that you're proposing. Actually, I wanted to circle back to David and ask, is the land that's Madison Land Conservation Trust land, does that have a trail on it or anything, or is it mostly wetlands?
No, it is actually quite a bit of wetland in there. I don't know if it's all wetland, but quite a bit of it is. And I haven't seen any trails through that area. No.
I'm just thinking, Erin, I don't know if 40 feet might be too high for that area. I don't know. I was trying to put it in context.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would, affect it. My assumption actually was the zone is 30 feet and I was willing to stay within that. I mean, it could be that an extra 5 or 10 feet might be helpful just to affect a roof line, that works, or something. Or if I need to raise the building a little bit above grade, I'm not sure how that affects the height, or if just raising grade is deducted from your height when you do it, gives you that extra, I may want to poke it up a foot or two above existing grade, the floor, maybe more, just to, especially if there is a basement, sometimes that can be helpful to keep it drier, so.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Aaron, in the wording change, I was confused on the square footage. I thought I saw 35,000 square feet was being requested. Did I read that wrong?
No, that's correct. So that's the total square footage of indoor floor area for the entire property. Correct, David?
Right. So that's
And
floor area, not coverage. So
yes.
Yeah, the existing buildings, where they had that now, on the larger parcel, the existing buildings have a coverage and a floor area, which is basically the same because they're all one-story buildings, about 8,460 square feet. At 10%, which is the rule, I can get 10% coverage. I could actually go up to 51,000 square feet, based on the current regs. So I'm sort of, telling you that I'm, for now anyway, I'm willing to go somewhat lower than that, keep myself under it, so I won't even be covering it
Right.
to the extent that I'm necessarily allowed to under the regs. So.
And similarly, for the smaller parcel that is roughly 90,000 square feet, you would, as of right, in an RU1 zone, have a maximum coverage of about 9,000 square feet. So if you assumed that you had a 2-story building, you're roughly near 18,000 square feet. So the proposal for the multifamily component is a maximum of 15,000 square feet. So that is fairly consistent with the underlying zone.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the building height is really, to me, it was a little uncomfortable reading the terminology for number of stories for human occupancy. I tried to find a way that seemed a little more consistent with the regulations. But again, if David isn't looking for 40 feet, then there's not necessarily a reason to go as high as 40. But understanding that there may be limitations in expanding your footprint significantly on that site due to wetlands and potential septic location, things of that nature.
Is there, I guess, 2 questions, or maybe 3. these are two completely different requests being rolled into one. So I think it's a lot easier to consider them separately. One is a business expansion, one is creation of multifamily housing. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to split the two to understand the pros and cons. So I guess my question at some point would be, is it possible to split this and consider each of them separately? The second part is, it sounds like that the proposed housing for the multifamily housing unit on the individual lot would meet the coverage requirements of the current zoning laws.
Well, it would need to.
It would need to, okay,
because there
okay.
isn't any other proposed language for lot coverage in
Right.
this section. So if
Okay.
it's not specifically spelled out, we're going to revert back to the RU1 zone.
So that gets my next question is, what is the need for us to consider modifying the current building codes and zoning codes for, I'm sorry if I'm using all the wrong words, but why do we need to consider modifying what is allowable to be built on a parcel of land for this parcel? I mean, it seems easier to say there's a request to build multifamily housing on this parcel. Is that okay? I'm not quite sure why we're being asked to modify this. Where's the deviation? If that lot is owned and it's developable, why do we have to modify it?
I'm not sure if I'm following you 100%,
I know.
Bob, but
I'm clumsy at the moment, sorry.
so multifamily is not an allowed use in the
Got it.
residential.
Okay, all right,
zone.
got it.
Okay,
Right.
so, and
Answer my question.
actually, none of these uses are allowed in a residential zone. This
Okay.
is a very specific text amendment that allows these uses only within the boundaries of this property by special exception.
Got
And
it.
only what's spelled out in this section is allowed. And so David is now looking to expand the allowed uses beyond the golf range and the commercial uses to include a housing component.
Okay.
A single family house is an allowed use in the underlying zone. So that is an as of right use that's currently on that north property.
Okay.
So in doing that, David proposed some limitations, or some specific standards for that multifamily housing. And that's where the height kind of came in. So we don't, as far as limiting to number of stories, if you're comfortable with that language, you can leave it, or you can just leave the underlying bulk standards for the RU1 zone as what governs the size of that proposed multifamily building. And then your second question, if you can consider these separately, yes. When you have a text amendment, you can review all of the language in this and modify as you see fit. So if you feel you like one aspect of this, but are not comfortable with another, you can make those recommendations, and this document can be amended. They're not two separate applications. It's just one section of the zoning regulations that you can amend as you feel appropriate.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Following up on that, looking ahead, David, I think you've said, you'd be back with a site plan and with a proposal. Would those be two separate site plans then?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it depends on the timing. I'm not sure I'd be doing everything all at once.
Yeah.
As far as giving more space within the existing building, I don't believe I need to go back to you with that. Once I have the language, I can use the interior of that existing commercial building any way I want, and just the tenants or myself, we can renovate the interior for whatever uses they want. If I had to add on to the building, I'd probably have to go back to you with a site plan, just as I built a barn several years ago, and I went back to zoning with a site plan for that, and because wetlands had to review it, and I went to ACA to review it, and everything else.
Similar if you had to add parking to accommodate the expanded Right.
You know, when I first opened the golf range, I put a swing set, which is still there. And the zoning enforcement officer complained that I had not gotten approval for the swing set. So I had to get approval for that. So, you know, I understand everything, you know, it has to be looked at carefully as far as the impacts on the property and the surrounding neighbors and how it can affect the community as a whole. That's why I've tried to present the language, especially for this multifamily thing, to be somewhat modest. I think personally that it's a very modest proposal. It's only 3 to 5 units. I've limited the number of bedrooms. I've limited the square footage, so you know, basically you can get some sense of the size of what it might be. You know, you can't see elevations yet, but that's a whole nother step where I have to spend a lot of time and a lot of money, frankly, to develop those plans and bring them to you without, you know, any certainly necessarily that, you know, they'll be approved at all. You might decide at that point that, you know, this just ain't what we want. So, you know, yeah, I'm trying to keep it modest. I don't want to go crazy there. And the site does have its limitations that I recognize, which are that there are these wetlands. There may be some problems with septic and water. We don't have city water or sewer or anything there. So I have to provide for all those things. And they are, you know, regulated as far as, you know, what you need to have capacities, you know, for, you know, dwelling units anyway. So that will all go through, you know, the sanitation department, the building department, the, you know, inland wetlands, whoever else has to get a look at it.
Another quick question. If the solar farm goes through, would you still want it? Then you can ask it then.
No, go ahead, Rob. That was my next question.
The solar farm goes through, do you still go through with the business expansion and the multifamily?
Well, yes. I mean, because the solar farm will not occupy those areas of the property.
Okay, that was the question. There's still
Yeah. And if the solar farm goes through, that actually makes the expansion of the businesses for Amato and Brittany much easier, because I don't have to think in terms of how do I manage the golf range on that property as well, because frankly, you know, they really need space, but I need space too. I kind of like the setup I have now for my business. It's really, really good. I really like it, and it's good for the customers. It provides, you know, quite, you know, attractive amenities for the trusters. Their ability, I don't know if you've been there or seen my business, but their ability to go through the building, and there's a bathroom and there's a place to wash your clubs. You know, the other alternative is basically I'd be providing service at a window outdoors, you know, and people wouldn't have that opportunity to come indoors and socialize or hang out or get out of the wind or the sun or whatever, you know. So it'd just be the amenities for the golf range would be much more basic, you know, and it would make it more difficult for me from a management point of view too. You know, the way I organize my labor flow, you know, labor flow in a business is very important, you know, so you have to manage materials, which for me is golf balls, and so how you service your customers, you know, how you interact with your customers, and the ability for people to multitask too. You know, I have functions that are concentrated in one area, so I can have a guy taking care of customers and washing balls and monitoring what's going on the property all at once with one person. If I had to change that, I may have to split some of those functions, which would create you know, bigger labor costs for me, you know, a lot of other costs and management hurdles. So, you know, there's obstacles to, you know, running all these businesses together. There's a lot to work through. You know, it's not easy, but, you know, there's a point where, you know, you have to look at what's the next thing in anything in life and anything in business too. So that's just where I'm at.
David, should you be asking us if a solar farm is an acceptable use?
Well, that's
as a text
On the
amendment?
size, it may be.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that unfortunately for the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission, is it's sort of out of your hands. The solar farm goes through the state siting council and, Public Utility Regulating Authority. So they will solicit input from the town. And we did have a meeting with the zoning, that guy, maybe it was in 2019 or just before COVID, maybe in 2020, where we presented before the zoning commission just what we were planning to do and what the implications were and, how it might impact the town. I did have a couple meetings with the Energy and Conservation Commission when that was still functioning, discussing that with Woody Weiss and the other members of that commission. They were fairly positive about it. Let's see. Yeah, and the Pura will solicit input from the town. So the Board of Selectmen or zoning or whoever else in the town wants to submit a letter, can submit letters to Pura expressing a point of view about it. And they will consider that. If the town is very much for it, then that helps me. If people in town are very much against it, that can hurt me. Like in Killingworth, I think 4 or 5 years ago, there was a proposal to build a very large solar farm off of Route 80 near the intersection of Chestnut Hill Road. And the residents of Killingworth were very, very much against it. And so Pura came down to Killingworth and held public hearings with the community to discuss, the implications. And it's not because people were against solar, it's because they were against it at that particular site. They just felt that it was too valuable, a natural area to use for this purpose. If you've got the time and energy, I can keep going.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bob had a question.
I don't know if this is a question, but it's a quick comment. It's not on your proposal per se, which certainly we're not promising anything, but so and so. But I just wanted to say that I really applaud you for thinking the way you are thinking about affordable housing, which is a need. And a lot of people say it's a need, but how do you do it? It takes an enormous amount of work and thinking and so and so. And so you've identified that and you want to do something about it. So I just want to say that I appreciate and I would like to see Madison government do as much as possible to help you not to put obstacles that are unnecessary or silly or anything in your way. But help you comply with the regulations and understand them and work with staff, etc. So that's not exactly a question, but anyway.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, so I think I just do want to clarify that this proposed housing does not have an affordable component as defined.
Right.
I was just going to ask about that.
So
I'm not trying to
while
do
it offers housing diversity, it is not deed restricted or restricted income affordable housing as would be
I
defined.
understand that. I misspoke, but you get,
Lowercase.
Although we would entertain that, David.
Yeah, I just found like for a development of this size to go through all the things that the state requires for that would just be kind of a lot of extra work. And I don't think it's really pays, because like 30% of 5 is what, 1.5 or something. So it's not really going to get us that far. I think, I'm trying to keep them fairly modest size, modest everything so that, I'm hopeful that I can keep them somewhat reasonable, hopefully not, really, really costly housing, but keep them somewhat reasonable. And
rentals.
Looking at things like just one bathroom, I don't think you need all these extra bathrooms. If you, the house that's there now on that property, I've rented for years and years, never had a problem renting it. All it has is one tiny bathroom, and people live with it and people are happy to have it, so. But it's true, it's not in good shape. It's low quality housing. So I've kept the rent very low. So I've never had trouble finding people to live there. These because it's new construction, we'll probably have to, I'll probably have to charge a bit more for them. But, I think that because of that, it'll be cheaper anyway to live there because they'll be more efficient. The utilities will be much lower for the.
All right, but so then you won't be officially applying this proposal with affordable housing, quote unquote, as part of the plan?
No.
Okay, thank you.
If there are any other questions from the commissioners, if not, we can open it up to if any attendees would like to ask any questions or have any comments. In the spirit of moving things forward, since it's approaching 10 o'clock very quickly.
Getting late.
I don't see any
Or a
hands.
smaller
raised.
agenda, actually. I don't see anyone with their hands raised, Madam Chair. I do actually, I do have one, Karen Handelman, that I will call on, but I did want to bring to the attention again to the board the various letters of support that were received for the expansion of the commercial uses. I'll let Karen, if you could identify yourself for the record with your name and address. You'll have to unmute.
We're all set. We'll be in touch. We'll just wait to hear what the next step is. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's the kind of question we like.
I don't see anyone else with their hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, issues from the commissioners?
No, ma'am.
If not, could I have a motion to close the public hearing and we'll move to deliberation?
Carol, can we just look at that wording around the housing units one more time?
Do you want
How,
to?
did, how would the wording change?
Would you like to see the text?
Yeah.
Aaron, can you
The
share that?
proposed text, is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1 second.
I mean, it would be good to have that up even for deliberation too. But so far the hearing's still open.
Okay, you wanted the section specifically for the multifamily housing?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Can I move to close the public hearing?
I'll
To
second.
deliberation.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, public
Aye.
hearing's closed. We're in deliberation. Just as a reminder, this is just a text amendment at this point that we're voting on.
Right.
I have no objections. I was a little bit concerned at one point of the image of golf balls hitting these solar panels, but I've learned since that would be unlikely.
Sound like they'd be mutually exclusive events.
Yeah.
Yes.
Self-destructing. No, I'm comfortable with the language proposed.
I think the retail portion of it is pretty straightforward and relatively easy. Regarding the housing proposal, the wetlands issue seems to be significant. How would that work going forward?
So should the text amendment be approved and it becomes part of the zoning regulations, then that means the applicant would be eligible to apply for a special exception to build that multifamily housing. In which case, when an application is made to the Planning and Zoning Commission for activity and that occurs within 100 feet of an inland wetland or watercourse, they are required to apply to the Inland Wetlands Agency for that regulated activity permit either prior to making application to the commission or concurrently. And the Planning and Zoning Commission cannot take action until the Inland Wetlands Agency does.
Okay.
How does everyone feel about the increase in height that Aaron proposed? As opposed to just saying 2-story structure? Any thoughts?
I'd have to see a proposed drawing and,
Yeah, I don't know what the,
yeah, what it all would
Yeah.
look like and how it would appear.
That's kind of why I wanted to look at the wording again. I say we're saying 3 to 5 units. I think 3 to 5 units, and however, Mr. Klein can fit them in, he
Yeah.
fits them in.
3 to 5 units, 2 stories high.
yeah.
I'm okay with that too.
I'd like to be flexible and, let's the architect draw what's drawn and let's take a look.
So I still am still somewhat confused on the square footage. If I'm doing the math right, if we 5 units at 1,200 square feet is 6,000 square feet, and the applicant is asking for 35,000 square feet. So are we saying 29,000 square feet of retail commercial?
So let me pull back up the section for you.
Yeah, I wasn't quite following the need for the total number of square feet. But I think that was to do with the allowable amount.
Right, so there's existing language in the regulation, all buildings combined on both parcels are currently limited to 10,000 square feet. And so Mr. Klein had indicated during the hearing that the existing floor area of the buildings are currently at 8,460 square feet. And at the same time, there's a maximum of 2,500 square feet allowed to be used by leased commercial space. So that's space in excess of the golf course or the golf range. And so he's proposing to expand the allowed square footage of leased retail or restaurant space to a total floor area of 10,000 square feet. So that could potentially be within existing structures or outside with a new addition. But the total square footage of all the buildings on both properties cannot exceed 35,000 square feet. So that includes accessory structures, the barn, the residential unit, and all of the commercial units. So I think that was.
But that is, I guess then my calculations are correct. It would say we're saying that Mr. Klein could potentially expand his commercial leasing footprint by about 3 times.
No, it's limited to
He
10,000.
would be allowed to only 10,000 square feet for leased commercial space. It could be it could allow for additional accessory structures associated with the golf range or for the residential uses. Well, actually, excuse me, not for the residential use, because the 15,000 square feet is
the least
already for the residential unit and any accessory buildings associated with that.
Right.
Okay.
So it really would allow for growth of the golf.
20,000 square feet for the golf. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, let's see, we're at 8. It would allow, if you have 35 total, we've got 10 for the retail, restaurant use, 15 for the residential, that gets you to 25. So you'd basically have 10 allowed for the golf range.
Can I clarify something? Is it okay? Appropriate?
No, actually, you can't
Sorry.
speak anymore, David, during,
Sorry.
the hearing has closed.
There's something I think you're leaving out, but okay. Just the barn.
The barn, yeah.
So, okay.
Is that what it is?
So Aaron, yeah, where's the 15,000 for the residential coming? That's, is 5 units times 1,200 square feet not the right calculation there?
You need, that's
So,
floor space. You
the-
need
each unit
closets
is-
and hallways and entryways and stuff like that.
Yep, storage rooms, utility rooms, any accessory building, shed or a detached garage, something of that nature for, laundry area, common laundry area, those kinds of things would be included into the total of the 15,000 square feet.
Okay,
It's a lot of extra space, but yeah.
it's a heck of a lot of extra space.
A lot of extra space. Wiggle room, storage, a lot of storage.
Well, you can limit that number if you so choose, if that feels excessive to you. You can
Well,
amend and approve.
Is 15,000 allocated to the housing? Did I miss that?
The-
Yeah,
the-
there's a maximum of
Yes, so
15.
let me screen share that again for you, John. So section 10.2, subsection 10.2, the total floor area for the multifamily housing shall not exceed 15,000 square feet, which includes utility rooms, storage rooms, and any accessory buildings.
Okay, so if it ends up being, say, 10,000 square feet in total, that whatever is not used in the housing could then also be used for the any sort of golf expansion?
So there is a maximum cap for square footage on the site, yes. And that's up to 35,000 square feet. So that includes existing building space that's designated for the golf range, including accessory structures.
Okay. If I'm the only one who's not getting this, then let's just move on.
It's somewhat complicated, and dare I say that a PDD might have made this a lot more simple. Here we are. Okay. Any other questions or comments or discussion?
Well, I think regarding the square footage, I mean, there is so much wiggle room that it's possible. I'm not saying that would happen. It's possible that we are approving something which is, Mr. Klein's words, modest, which could become something much different and considerably less modest if it's 15,000 square feet total.
Yeah.
Doesn't he have to come back with building plans?
Site plans.
Yes, a use, nope, it's a special exception use.
Oh, sorry.
So an application for multifamily housing would go before the Inland Wetlands Agency and before the commission as a special exception application. Same process you just went through with the previous application.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Do we feel comfortable making a motion? We have a draft resolution, which we can.
I'm sure there's a draft resolution somewhere.
Yes, it is. It's short and sweet.
I can share it and you can, it's just a starting point. I just,
So we're approving a starting point.
but you can at least edit as you see fit.
Now, so not exceed 40 feet. Buildings shall not exceed 40, that's like a dollhouse, right?
That's the height.
That's
Oh,
the height. So this
that's
is, instead of
Can we
leaving
add in
the,
height.
Yes, you can add that. You can change the number if you'd like, or you could leave the
No, the height's
existing
fine, but it
language in the
doesn't-
proposal.
Okay. Okay.
That's at your discretion. It's kind of a placeholder here to see what direction the commission wanted to go.
I'm inclined to just take that out
Mhm.
and
Right.
leave the language of the two-story units as it's proposed.
I agree with you, Carol.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
Okay?
Yes.
Can we present it as a motion? Someone like to do that?
I'd
Sure, I'll
be
do it.
delighted to. Yes. So moved to remove the section 4:135:1 be revised to state the multifamily building should not exceed 40 feet.
I'll second it.
Aaron, would you like us to read it with that deleted?
So essentially you're saying in the first three lines, approve the application as proposed, period,
Yes.
without a condition. Okay, and then it would be appropriate to make a finding associated with your resolution as well. So if you could read the second paragraph.
Okay. Bob Reinhardt, would you like to read?
Sure, I'll just read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Move that 2307 applicant David Klein petition for regulation amendment to Madison zoning regulations, special exception, section 4.1.35. The following draft resolution is offered. Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve application number 23-07. Applicant David Klein petition for regulation amendment to Madison zoning regulations, special exception, section 4.1.35 as proposed. This approval is made based upon the fact that the applicant has successfully demonstrated that the proposal is consistent with the intent of and the goals and objectives contained in the plan of conservation and development, including encouraging economic development and diversifying Madison's housing portfolio.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. John Morgan, are you abstaining?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, so we have one abstention. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
David.
David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so moving along to our regular meeting. Night is young.
I can leave now, right? I can go to bed.
Yes, go to bed.
Yes,
you
good
can.
night, David.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
Next on our agenda is the pending application of 23-03 plus coastal site plan for 9 Neck Road. Everyone
Yes,
doing okay?
this is a site plan application, excuse me, a subdivision application. This is not a public hearing. And Chuck Mandel of Thomas Stevens and Associates is here on behalf of the applicant as well as the applicant, Westbuilt Modular and Development.
So, good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. Casey Caviston is the name in the LLC. So just so you have your name associated with it. So for orientation purposes, this Watcher's House is on Neck Road. It's from almost at the corner of Neck Road and Route 1. It's about 300 feet southeast of the Winter Club. You may have heard of that. That's another facility in Madison. The original Watcher's House was from 1920, actually. I saw some historical data, and it was actually a sanatorium, and it was on parcel A and parcel B. So that was actually on 2 lots back in the day. Subsequently, in 1951, Shorelands Drive became a subdivision. That's the map was picked up. That was a file map number 399. And that was lot 25 was also purchased by the Watrous House. So originally this was 3 lots. Then it all got combined into one. Erin did a great job on her memorandum. I don't know where she finds the time for it, but I could almost read it for you. And it pretty much puts in a nutshell what we're proposing. So the Watrous House will be, I'm sorry, Erin, if you could share the screen, maybe actually the next sheet might be a little bit more helpful. It shows a little bit more detail as to the actual, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
So we removed the old building. The old building, as I said earlier, will be demolished. We have proposed 3 separate lots, about 40,000 square feet each. There was a little bit, there was some wetland to the north. It's wetlands is off site, but the 100-foot radius of the review zone actually get with this particular plan. If anyone wants to go in the future, they certainly can reapply to wetlands if need be. We do have approval from the health department for 3 individual on-site septic systems. The original Watrous House was about 45 bedrooms. There was quite a large septic field. Actually, lot 25 was almost all septic. That's the lot that was furthest to the south, and that's all that will be abandoned. It's going to be on public water, public gas. We will be removing the driveway from Neck Road, so the only entrance will be off of Shorelands. There will be no additional traffic at that intersection. It gets pretty busy right there sometime during the summer, especially. The other question was, if you look to the east of the property, there's a hatched area. So there was the adjoiner on Whedon Lane has claimed some of that property. He'd been mowing it. So that does not affect our development. So that will be put into, I believe actually Michael Salzbeck is the attorney for the adjoiner property. And we're working through details to just deed that portion of the property to him to avoid any battles. In addition, we are also proposing a conservation area. And that's going to be a combination of, so in regards to the open space requirement or fee in lieu of, the 10% max, but we're also made available. We will be not donating, but put some of the land, about a half an acre, into a conservation easement, which would be mostly upon lot 1 and lot 2. And I think that was on sheet 3 of 3. I believe that showed up on the other one to highlight that.
No, that's
and if there are also went for a coastal review, we're reducing the imperviousness. Well over 50% of impervious coverage is going to be removed from the site. And all of the structures, all the homes will be capturing roof water as part of the standard low impact development, which most new developments will have at this point. And if there are any questions, I would be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
I didn't share that screen, Chuck, as I didn't realize you were going to be doing the combination of conservation easement and fee in lieu. I can share that screen in just a few minutes. I'll send that to myself here, if that's what.
That was my understanding, Erin, and Casey's on now if he had an objection to it, but I thought it was a fair compromise. Go ahead, Casey.
Well, that's what we were talking. We had a couple different discussions about that, and I believe earlier in the day, Tony from your office had a discussion with Erin, and we just had agreed on a fee in lieu of. And Erin, isn't that what you and Tony discussed earlier? Or
Right. So, and I think to speak to the fee in lieu, so the subdivision regulations, as I indicated in my staff report, I believe it's section 10. allow, so, or require a set aside of open space for each subdivision application. And so not less than 10% of the total area of the subdivision shall be provided and reserved as open space. Excuse me, it's section 3.11 of this, of the regulations. However, further in section 3.11.2, recognize that the dedication of open space may not be desirable or appropriate in all situations. And we've talked about this before as a commission, and most recently in our POCD discussion at our last meeting for dedicating open space. Whether the town doesn't have any abutting property or the land trust, and we don't want to have these little orphaned areas of open space to manage throughout town. So the commission may instead accept a fee or a combination of a fee and land, provided that the fee does not exceed 10% of the fair market value of the land prior to the subdivision. So for us, for our way of practice, we've been utilizing the tax assessor's field cards to gain the current market value of the land. In this particular case, the current market value of the land is $804,300. So 10% would be roughly an $80,000 fee in lieu requirement, a payment. And the Connecticut general statutes require that that payment be made. You use the number of lots as the denominator, and prior to the sale or issuance of final zoning compliance for those lots, a payment needs to be made to the town, and that gets deposited into our open space fund. So in this particular case, the value of the land is significantly higher than in some other areas of town that we have seen. And so the applicant has come forward to offer a 5% fee in lieu open space, proposing a payment of $40,215 as opposed to the $80,000 proposal, and to be paid in accordance with the statutes as I have just described. And so I guess that's a question for the commission for consideration and your discretion as far as how you'd like to satisfy that open space requirement. Are you comfortable with a 5% fee in lieu so that that could be used towards the purchase of more desirable open space land, or would you prefer to have a combination of simply a deed restriction for conservation area? Essentially, this area is, a lot of it's disturbed anyways, whether it has current impervious surface on it or not, to be reverted into a natural state and place a restriction on it, a development restriction essentially. And that's really up to the discretion. It's up to what the applicant is proposing and to the commission. You could require the full $80,000, or you can choose anything, any sort of combination thereof.
Erin, could you just qualify or describe to us a little bit, how does the fee get used? Is it the land acquisition committee for the town that decides where these monies go?
The town does not have a land acquisition committee. So currently our fund is, so the town has the right to make deposits into this fund, which I don't believe has been done in recent times. We have roughly under $250,000 in that property. So if there's desirable open space that the town has prioritized and has an eye on, this money can go towards that purchase. But it is restricted for the purchase of open space.
But does it go to the Madison Land Conservation Trust, or does it,
No,
through the
it's
town?
the
The town
town.
decides what land to purchase to preserve as open space?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
And now, I'm sorry, just to
I
make sure.
have this. I'll show you the revised drawing.
Yeah, that would be helpful. That would be helpful.
I had to email it to myself.
And what are applicants, what are you asking for? Are you asking for us to consider a shared?
No, Chuck Mandel, as Mr. Caviston stated, we're just looking for the 40%. I'm sorry, the $40,000, the 5% share. As you can see, actually in that conservation area that I had proposed, I noticed that most of that is going to be regulated by the Wetlands Commission anyway. It falls within the 100-foot review zone, so there really can't be anything touched. So, and as Aaron said, these little orphan pieces, the town really isn't interested in those.
No.
And I believe 5% for that neighborhood is a fair compromise.
Do we have any precedent on the amount that's been on the percentage used before?
That's a good question. And this has come up in other municipalities as well, as far as how that, it is at 10%. Our regulation specifically indicates that maximum of 10%. What's that?
So what number is typically used?
We have, I think our most recent, well, so let's see, in the last couple of years, we've had, or at least in my tenure here as town planner, we've had a subdivision on Wildwood Avenue that utilized the fee in lieu option. It was a 3-lot subdivision. However, a significant amount of that property was inland wetlands. That fee in lieu was just under $27,000 divided by the 3 lots. In the case of Summer Hill Road, it was another 3-lot subdivision that happened to be an actual dedication of the full 10% of the lot area. It may even be more than 10%, but that was adjacent to existing Madison Land Conservation Trust land. So they happily accepted that as it was along the Hammonasset River.
But the market value of those properties were probably something less than the one on Neck Road, I would suspect.
Right. And my understanding, and Casey, I get you may be able to speak to this, is that this current property has deed beach rights, which probably increases the value of that land. I can't speak to how much, what weight the assessor's office puts, during the reval. If more of the value goes into the land than the buildings, we tend to see that. But clearly, this particular location is a more desirable location or, a more valuable location, according to the tax records. $80,000 would be divided by 3 lots for the total amount. So I think,
but I'm looking at the guideline is percentage, and the guideline doesn't say vary the percentage based on the value of the land. And 3 acres, I think it is, 800,000 really isn't that much relative to other areas of Madison along the shoreline. So I'm curious, what I'm trying to do is figure out what would be considered typical for a transaction like this within Madison. Do we usually fall at 7.5%, 6%, 8%? Do we always do 10%? So that we don't have someone saying, why'd you give them 5% and you charge me 7%? What's
right?
Well, yeah, you do get into that a bit,
right.
But it really is, the set aside is not less than 10% of the total area. However, our specific regulation allows you to charge a fee or take a combination if somebody doesn't have 10% of the lot area.
I get that.
So it really, I don't know the history for the town or how many of these higher valued properties have gone through subdivision. There's not a lot of big lots like down on the water to compare to. I think Chuck and I were involved in one in Guilford, actually, that the value of the property was, upwards of $1 million.
Right.
I can tell you the Planning and Zoning Commission had the same challenge in trying to find a value that was consistent, but not coming back where you were going to have future applicants say, well, you did this for this one. Why won't you reduce the amount for me?
And Aaron, to your point, as far as how the assessment was gauged, I mean, there was a huge building on there, which was quite valuable. So I don't know if that was part of the assessment, how that was derived, that monetary value. Right. And that building will be demolished.
They do break out the land versus the cost of the building in the field card.
Yeah.
Aaron, yeah, and there's some debate whether it has beach rights or not. Only one small portion of it does, and the Beach Association is trying to, what's the right word, exact a fee from us to assure that the whole property has beach rights at this moment. So there's just one little portion on the shorelines further towards the beach that had beach rights, and the rest of it, they are disputing whether it has beach rights. So that's not necessarily a given.
Okay.
I really would like to know, again, I'm just repeating Rob's point that, I'd like to have a better sense of what's done. I realize each case is different, but then again, they can be categorized, and I want to be fair to these guys, but both be also fair to future in the town. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, so I can speak to another aspect. Another part of the subdivision regulations allows the commission to grant waivers of open space requirements. So the commission has for subdivisions.
I get that, but I put it this way. This is like a negotiation. It's up to 10. They're saying 5. We come back with 8 instead of that, because why would we give money away that we can ask to have better the overall town? And since there's no, I get that it could be 4%, could be reasonable, but there's got to be some way for us to gain some guidance as to the previous history and how it's been applied.
If there is any,
plowing the land each time.
Well, you're looking for a basis. What's the basis of a decision we make? We don't have any sense of that.
Last 3 times this was done, what percentage was used? If that's even possible to find out. If it's not, then we're just on our own.
Yeah.
So I don't have exact numbers for the last so many years. One of the largest that I'm trying to think of subdivisions that are under construction. Markham Place is one that has set aside open space that was deed restricted to the land trust, that was transferred to the Madison Land Conservation Trust.
You said there were dollar amounts associated with that in the resolutions by the commission, where was the percentage captured, or was it just a dollar amount?
Anyone that in my tenure here so the only one we did not accept a donation of land was the Wildwood subdivision, and that was a full 10%.
All right.
I know there was a subdivision on Green Hill Road in the 600 block, and that open space requirement was waived by the commission.
Okay.
And,
so we have
what was the reasoning?
You're kind of all over the place. Look at the size of our open space fund. It's not that big.
I understand.
We must not be.
But the Green Hill Road thing.
Much of a history, or that even if the applicant was willing to grant an extension to the commission to allow me to do that research, that we will necessarily come up with something significant that will help your decision.
You make a good point, Aaron, but with the Green Hill Road, what was the basis for waiving it? Do you know?
Yeah, it was essentially 2 lots.
And that's all there was.
Not really a subdivision, yeah. Okay.
I came across that in my travel, in researching something, and saw that it was waived. And as wearing your planning you are able to make waivers of the subdivision regulations. And so that is one of the sections that the commission has in the past taken advantage of. So that just shows you an example that they have used some level of flexibility in the past.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel, one more time, and that's one of the reasons I got that conservation restriction up, just to maybe help the commission, because it was either a fee in lieu of or a combination there of land. And Casey can tell me he isn't willing to give up the conservation easement, and yes, then it would be up to him to grant an extension, since this is the last meeting tonight. I don't know where the commission stands, but I think, and I've seen this in many towns, and this is not unique to Madison in regards to this, the fee in lieu of. Guilford had the same problem. I think they're almost ready to resolve it. Many towns on the shoreline have the same problem. So unless there is a clear policy, it'd be great if we could just act tonight at the 5% that we offered. And if the conservation easement, there's really no harm in development of those lots either way. And if Casey agrees to that, and then if the commission is amenable to it, then we could just go forward and get this off the agenda.
Well, I agree. I'd like to get it taken care of tonight. And, I don't know if I'm able to propose or not, but I would propose, let's split the difference and call it $60,000, and you're 40, we're at 80. Let's split the difference and wrap it up.
Fine, fine, that's fine. Exactly what I was trying to avoid, but that works fine too.
Yeah.
Why not? Sorry, didn't mean to be problematic. I'm new.
I'm new too, but this is a little disturbing new. I hadn't heard this before.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have, but.
So the whole concept of open space is, to provide some type of park area, recreation area for your residents here. And some have kind of claimed that this is now turned into, a subdivision tax per se, an opportunity for the town to collect, a legal opportunity in the statute. So, and in a sense, in a 3-lot subdivision of this nature, there isn't going to be that community park area like you would in a larger scale subdivision.
It makes sense to do it this way. All right.
So
okay, understood.
it really, it comes down to the ultimate number. We could potentially look into amending our regular, when we do our rewrite, how to address this so we don't have these questions.
Good idea.
Put that on the list of things to do.
To-do list.
In Guilford, there was not, at least it's you have discretion. Some regulations are left up to what the applicant is willing to offer, not what the commission may require. And so in a way, at least you have that going for you.
Right. Okay, so we have a new offer then.
Erin, should we open up the meeting for any public questions or comments, or?
It's not a public hearing, Madam Chair. A subdivision does not have a public hearing requirement. So that is really at your discretion if you wanted to, but it is not required. And
Chuck Mandel, Madam Chair, and this is also for coastal plan review also. So that is part of the application. Although it is within a CAM, a subdivision within a CAM, there are no critical coastal resources. Maybe the inland wetlands could be considered, but that is off the property.
Thank you, Chuck, for bringing that up. The mere fact that it is an application for subdivision triggers the coastal site plan requirement. The actual development of the sites will not require return. They're outside that distance from the critical coastal resource. However, town staff did refer this to DEEP for comments. They provided back their worksheet. Again, that this is actually a reduction in impervious coverage. It's introduction of stormwater management onto the site where currently there are no provisions for such. General coastal resources are the mandatory box that everybody has to check for any development. The site's not within a flood hazard area. Really the only recommendation for the approval of the coastal site plan would be to require the applicant to maintain adequate sedimentation and soil erosion control measures during any construction activities.
And Chuck Mandel, in addition to it, we also reducing the septic output by about half of what was currently there. So
Yeah, no,
for
it's-
groundwater.
That's great. It's great.
It's a very logical subdivision. There's no
Yeah,
question about it.
it looks great.
I have a draft resolution if no one has any further questions or
The
if you'd
draft
like to get a
resolution, but
motion on the
Have we
floor
resolved the issue of the fee in lieu?
discussion.
I think I'm good.
Okay, so my draft resolution does have a previous proposed number on that. So you may want to revise that condition number 1.
You leave it there.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna change that.
That's why you get paid the big bucks, Chuck.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I got to try.
Hey, no, that's perfectly fine. I'll move to do this.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. This is 2 in one night, though. Just remember.
Yeah, yeah, we'll.
I picked the 2 short ones, though.
You
All
get-
right. Moved. The following resolution is offered, voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve application number 23-03 plus CSP, 9 Neck Road, map 24, lot 41, R3 zone. Applicant Matty DeVell, 3 LLC owner, Watros Realty LLC. 3 lot subdivision. Application includes coastal site plan as shown on record subdivision map, subdivision plan, Watros Point, prepared for West Built Modular and Development LLC. Assessors map 24, lot 41, 9 Neck Road by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates. Dated January 9th, 2023, sheets C1 through 3, with the following condition: that the applicant submit open space fee in lieu in the amount of $60,000 in accordance with CGS section 8-25, paragraph A. Be it further voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve the coastal site plan application as presented with the following condition. 1, that prior to any site disturbance, soil and sedimentation control measures shall be installed to adequately protect the adjacent coastal resources. The effective date of this approval is March 31st, 2023, and upon filing of the record subdivision map on the land records.
Thank you, Bob. Could I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Build nice houses.
I
too.
abstained, by the way.
Bob O'Connor, yeah, I was just gonna say you abstained. Okay, so we had 1 abstention. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Aaron, thank you for your help as usual.
You're welcome. Good night.
Okay, so moving along, Aaron, you have 23-05, 14 New Road as our next agenda item, which we will be tabling to our April 20th, 2023 meeting. Is that right?
Yes, they're working on revisions associated with the Inland Wetland Agency approval. So they need another month.
So they've requested that. Okay, good.
Yes.
And do you want to describe what we have on receipt?
We have 2 applications for receipt, not for action this evening. The 200 Neck Road is an application it's a site plan application for terrace more than 25 feet from a coastal resource. I'm in the process of reviewing that application for zoning compliance and for determination of consistency with with the section. There's some fill associated with that. So I believe that will be back before you at your next meeting.
Okay.
And then the second is 23-09, 155 Overshores Drive West. This is previously approved flood and erosion control structure on the property that is landward of coastal jurisdiction line that the applicant is looking to extend based on previous storm impacts. And this has been referred to DEEP for comments, and they have a 35-day referral period. So that's going to be tabled to the April 20th meeting as well.
Great. Next, approval of minutes, and Secretary John Duza.
Sure. March 2nd, 2023, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. Members present: Snow, Duza, O'Connor, Morgan, Peckinpah, and Bugda. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Who got the approval and who got second?
I got the approval, I think.
Yeah, I'll second.
And I second.
Thank you. Any corrections or edits?
I do have a question. Oh, well, I think it's a correction or a question or an edit. In the very first opening statement, it says that it's a regular meeting, but should we be saying that these are planning meetings now as opposed to a regular meeting, Erin?
No, a regular meeting means it's regularly scheduled on your calendar, not a special meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
It's fine. Looks
okay.
You look great.
I don't have anything. Vote to approve. All in favor? Aye.
I abstain. I wasn't
One
there.
abstention. Got it. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Remarks? I have no remarks. Erin, do you have any?
No, my only comment is if you did attend the Connecticut Bar Association all-day training last Saturday, and you can provide us with a receipt that you registered and let me know that you attended, I will reimburse you for your $45 now, I think it is.
Yeah, it was 45. So do I have to officially tell you I attended, or can I just tell you now that I did attend?
No, please send it in an email. I'll forget.
Okay. Okay.
If we got the book.
I would appreciate that, yes. And I'm sure you have a receipt from the Bar Association from registering.
I already supplied it to Maria.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yep.
Should we send it to Maria or you?
That I believe they're going to share some PDF information or recording of that training session.
That's what they said they would do, yeah.
Yeah, so for those who weren't able to attend, I could at least provide you with the link to that.
Yes.
Please do. Please do.
Like to set aside 8 hours.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. That's good. I can do it at home with a beer.
It's light reading.
Did I hear correctly what later on in the whole seminar that they actually exceeded 900 attendees?
Was it 900? I know over 800 registered.
They said we are at 800, but then I think later on they said we actually broke 900.
Wow.
It's a lot. I just
That's
want to
what happens when you have a law now that you have to do continuing education.
A mandate really works wonders. Erin, I just wanted to say too, if we get the PDF, that's great, because then you can search it by certain terms.
Oh, you won't get the PDF of the book. No.
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying.
Nope. I'm
No,
sorry.
the presentation
PDF of the PowerPoint presentations and the recording.
Right.
But the book, they only provide imprint.
Yeah. Okay.
The 2-inch thick book. Oh my goodness.
Full of case law.
It's a good desk reference. I refer to it all the time. So good to have on hand, but don't feel obligated that you have to dig through it to find information. Feel free to ask.
We will ask.
Available, Erin, to get?
You can order the book, absolutely, directly through the Bar Association's website. You'll just pay the $45 and they'll mail it to you.
I can do
Sure.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
I did go to 3 of their 1-hour sessions, by the way, earlier. I don't know if
They're
you need
great
that.
resource. Yeah. So you probably have
can send them.
sections.
And that was
from
free.
that book
by the way.
covered.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll continue to provide opportunities. Don't panic. You'll
Please
have,
do.
you'll meet your requirements. You'll be fine.
All righty then. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Hey,
Okay, great.
got a lot done
Thanks all.
today, guys. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your-
Aaron.
your
You're
work,
welcome. Good
Aaron.
night.
You're getting there.
Thank you.
Carol,
Everyone.